Our board members here or online, so I'm going to call us to order. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the CA Board of Directors for October 23rd. Our chair, Colin, is remote tonight, so I'll be serving as acting chair. I'll be conducting tonight's meeting in alignment with CA's Code of Ethics, our civility policy, and Robert's Rules of Order. Board members will be recognized up to 2 times per motion, with priority given to those who haven't yet spoken. Let's continue to engage respectfully, stay focused on the agenda, and work towards productive outcomes for the community. I'll now call the roll. And by the way, we're going to do reverse alphabetical order tonight, so it's going to be different. Cool. Ashley.
Here.
Colin.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
Delilah. Delilah, you're on mute, I think. Okay, we'll come back to Delilah. Eric?
Here.
Wes?
Here.
Karen?
Here.
Reg?
Here.
Sky?
Here.
Sean?
Here.
And I am here. All right, everyone's here. Did we figure out with Delilah what's going on?
She just came off.
Can you try speaking, Delilah?
She doesn't even have the microphone option on Zoom, so I don't know if that's a problem with her privileges.
Okay, so I'll just note that Delilah is joining us online and can obviously hear us, but can't yet speak. All right, as a reminder to everyone here in person, that the audio and video of tonight's meeting are being broadcast live to YouTube and will be available for review later this evening. Anyone using the link to the meeting on CA's website will be able to see and hear the proceedings. If you haven't already done so, please silence any phones and other noise-making devices. And for board members, just a reminder to turn on your mic when speaking and off when not. Ashley is going to be our timekeeper tonight. And I'll now announce the closed meetings. So CA's ethics panel met virtually on August 29th. The members present were Lydia Lawless, Chad Spencer, and Danielle Vranarian. I'm probably mispronouncing that. It's okay, it's one of my people with a weird last name. The vote to close the meeting was 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstentions. The meeting was closed from 10:37 to 11:04. The meeting was closed in accordance with Maryland's HOA Act, sections 4.1 and 4.3, to discuss matters pertaining to employees and personnel, as well as consult with legal counsel on legal matters. Separately, CA's ARC met on October 13th at CA headquarters. Members present were Deb Bach, Caroline Payton, Eva Lambright, Lexi Milani, and Carl McKinney. The vote to close was unanimous. The meeting was closed from 1:02 to 2:09. The meeting was closed in accordance with Maryland's HOA Act, specifically Section 4.4, to consult with staff, personnel, consultants, attorneys, board members, or other persons in connection with pending or potential legal litigation or other legal matters. Okay, so now we're on to item 3, the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Ashley?
I second it.
Sky? Any discussion? Eric?
Yes, I move to strike 7A from the agenda.
Second.
We just got the policy in the packet yesterday. I don't think there's any time for people to have looked at it, and plus the fact we actually just approved a CEO evaluation policy last spring that Sean brought to the board, and we approved, I believe, unanimously, so I don't see any reason for us to even consider a new policy.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, I will say that we brought this up in May, and multiple people were in favor of asking Monica to provide an updated policy for several reasons, and I think we should hear what those proposals are, and then we can decide if we want to approve it or not.
Point of order on that, and we can't vote on it anyway because that would violate the our 3 meetings rule.
Overruled. That's not accurate. It's not an important enough motion to require 3 meeting rule.
Okay.
Karen?
Yeah, I just think that we haven't had enough time to review it. I don't think that we should be voting on it tonight. That's my biggest concern, is we literally only saw it 24 hours ago.
Understood.
So I don't think we should vote on it.
Understood. Any other discussion?
Point of order, the last time this was discussed in May, it's been more than 60 days since we reviewed it, and therefore it would be dead.
Overruled. It was not tabled in May. It was deliberately given to Monica to have time to prepare. Reg?
Just a quick question.
Yes.
If we didn't vote on it today, when would be the next, when would we be voting on it?
I guess that'd be up to the board. We'd probably move it to the next, to next month, but that would be up to the board.
Okay.
I do want to highlight one other thing, that we need to do Sean's mid-year evaluation next month, and it would be ideal to make sure that we are doing his mid-year evaluation using the same evaluation that we're going to do at the end of the year, which kind of makes this a timely issue. Anyone else? Karen, your second time?
Yeah, I know that we asked, I know that we did ask Monica for this. Do we have a rule about how long, I mean, we released the packet on Friday afternoon so that the public has enough time to look at it. This only came out yesterday. What is the rule for when we have to release information in order to give the public enough time to review the information?
We can follow up on that later. All right, any other discussion on the motion?
Colin has his hand raised.
Thank you. Colin?
I'd like to call the question on this item.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone object? All right. So we are going to vote on removing 7A from the agenda. A yes vote will remove the discussion on the evaluation policy from the agenda. A no vote will keep it on the agenda. Ashley?
No.
Colin?
No.
Bill?
No.
Delilah?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Wes?
No.
Karen?
Yes?
Reg?
No.
Sky?
No.
And I am also a no. The motion fails. Any other motions for, any other amendments for the agenda?
Point of order, what was the vote? Was it 8 to 1?
It was 8-2 failed. Okay, so
Colin has his hand raised again.
thank you. Colin?
I was just about to move to end debate for
Okay.
the agenda.
All right, so now we're going to vote on the agenda. This will, vote yes will approve the agenda as it's in the packet. Ashley?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Delilah?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Wes?
Yes.
Karen?
No?
Reg?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The agenda is approved 9-1. All right, okay. Now, item 4, Columbia update. Sean has an update for us on the Long Reach Village Center.
Yes, so in your packet, the board will see a letter drafted by Judell Campbell, our community planner. It's just summarizing in a nutshell, you're all aware that the Long Reach Village Center redevelopment is ongoing with Columbia Concepts through the county procurement. We've been working with Columbia Concepts on the status of both the Stonehouse, the Art Center, and we have some green space in the area. Part of the application for Columbia Concepts is to amend the preliminary development plan with the county. That application process requires an owner's authorization signature. We're not initially comfortable signing off for CA as the owner due to the fact that it has not been stated clearly what Columbia Concepts' intention is with both Stonehouse, the Art Center, and our green space. There's been multiple scenarios presented in different packets and different presentations. So we had that conversation with Columbia Concepts. We also had an in-person meeting with our leadership, Columbia Concepts, and a member of Howard County, County Executive Catherine Balls, Chief of Staff. The result of that meeting was what's included in this letter in your packet, which was submitted by Columbia Concepts to discuss what options could be for CA's facilities. So as a result of that, there was no commitment. There's also a letter in the packet that gives our CA's owner authorization to proceed with the application process. It does not commit CA to anything. We can withdraw at any time, but we want to facilitate this project for the county and for Long Reach Village, so we thought it was important to keep the process moving. So this is just in the interest of transparency, both with the board and the public, to know where CA is at. No decisions have been made, nothing in definitive has been presented, there's just been options, but we are supportive of the project as a whole and like to see it redeveloped. So.
Okay, any questions for Sean? Keep in mind that this is just a Columbia update, so we don't have a lot of time. Yeah.
Okay, not actually a question, but I just want to say thank you very much, especially to Jadel, because that was a very fine document that was sent over, and the support that came out of the CA staff. Because we have, in Long Reach, we have our concerns, and I'm glad that you guys wrote what you wrote and the way you did it and stood by your guns. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Just really quick, I'm happy to hear that we're cooperating and coordinating with other people in the neighborhood. But in reading this part of our packet here, I'm still a little unclear as to what we would own or lease as a part of this discussion. And if I could, we don't need it now, but if I could get further clarification of kind of in plain language what they're talking about, that would be very helpful to me. Some of the drawings don't really match up.
Yes.
And I know it's early, but we probably need to get clarification on that sooner rather than later.
We are working, I agree 100%.
Okay.
And what we got back was, it's a little bit better, but we have nothing definitive. So that's what we're working on. So yes,
Thank you.
we'll
I
be back.
appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thanks.
Scott?
Just a point of clarification, the term green space is the same as open space? How we use it? What are the differences? And my second question is, I've been to a couple of these presentations before, and I just want to make sure that the alternatives are that we do nothing, that we sell our land to Columbia Concepts, and that we lease to or from Columbia Concepts. Is that basically the three?
Right now, those are options that have been discussed. I mean, there could be others presented in the future, but those are definitely under consideration, and they are part of kind of the letter in the packet that you saw.
Thank you.
Right.
And green space or open space?
I don't know the exact difference. There's a difference. We can get that for you.
Typically, open space is a zoning designation, whereas green space refers to places with grass and plants.
Okay.
Some of those green spaces happen to be at the top of apartment buildings and condos, and it's for the residents there. So we were actually looking for more open space for people to come and sit and congregate and participate. So there's a disappointment in some of the plans that are being made for our village, but we still want a remodeling of our village center, and we kind of looked at Wild Lake and kind of but that's what we're dealing with right now.
Okay, so I think we've gotten the update from staff is the purpose of the Columbia update. I know that there's a lot of interest in how the designs for Long Reach actually play out, and I think there's ample opportunity for us to participate that, and then if it ever comes to a decision on, disposition of property, obviously the staff is not going to make that without consulting the board first. All right, so we're going to move on. We didn't have anyone sign up for resident speak out, so we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda, which is for the approval of the minutes for both September 25th and July 24th. Eric, would you like
I
to?
request them both come off the consent agenda.
You would like both of them to come off the consent agenda? Okay. So now we are going to move on to discussing both of these. Ashley?
Can I just call the question?
Yes, you can.
Could I?
But, first, Ashley, you actually have to make a motion before we can actually call a question. So I think you're saying you want to,
I thought it was his motion to move it.
no, it just came off the,
I don't have to move it.
it just came off the consent agenda. Now we need a motion to approve them.
Okay, then I motion to approve the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, Ashley has moved to approve the minutes for
For A
September.
and B, 6A
Okay.
and B.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, now Ashley, I think you want to make another motion.
To call the question.
All right. Any objection to
I will
calling the question?
second
I object.
calling the question.
Okay, so Ashley has moved to end debate and call the question.
I object.
Colin has seconded. This is not something this is not that we discuss. Let me get this set up here. Okay, so this will end debate and call the question on the minutes, and then we will, if this approves, a vote yes will end debate, and we'll just move on to voting on the minutes. A vote no means we will have a discussion about the minutes. Everyone understand?
Is it a majority or a 2/3?
It needs 2/3
Okay.
to end debate.
Got it.
So yes ends debate, no, we're going to continue discussing the minutes. Ashley?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Delilah?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Wes?
Yes.
Karen?
No.
Reg?
No.
Sky?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, so the motion to end debate carries 7-3. Now we're going to vote on the minutes. So a vote yes approves the minutes as presented in the packets. A vote no does not approve them. Ashley?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you, Colin.
That's because my mouth is full. Yes.
Bill?
No.
Delilah?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Wes?
Yes.
Karen?
No.
Reg?
No.
Sky?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That carries 6-4. The minutes are now approved. All right, now we're going to move on to old business. So we have Monica here to provide the proposed changes to the President CEO evaluation policy that we requested back in May. And do you kind of just hand it over to Monica? All right.
Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Monica McMillan-Ajayi, Director of Human Resources, Diversity, and Inclusion for Columbia Association. In reviewing the CEO evaluation process, I consulted with Maryland nonprofits. So I am pleased to introduce Abna Apal from Maryland Nonprofits, who plans to guide us through the review process. And drawing on Maryland Nonprofits' extensive experience with CEO assessments and evaluation tools, Abna is going to offer some recommendations to help refine the approach. And not only for greater efficiency, but also to ensure that feedback is clear in a CEO evaluation, constructive and actionable. And so without further ado, I will turn it over to Abna.
Thank you, Monica, and pleasure to meet all of you virtually. Today, I'm going to be walking you through the process that we've reviewed, and I want to make note that while I'm here and serving as presenter, I worked in collaboration with Dr. Monique Grisette-Banks, who is the technical expert as it relates to HR processes. So I just want to make sure to note that Dr. Monique is not here with us today, but she has greatly informed the process. Okay, and thank you to the individual who is providing tech support. If you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through a little bit of an introduction and talk about our objectives for today. Then I'll talk about the proposed process changes at a high level before walking through the process in detail. Then I'll talk a little bit about the move from the numeric to a more descriptive ratings process so that you understand exactly the connections between the numbers and the descriptive ratings. After that, I'll go through the process, giving a few examples, then talk through how the process ultimately ends at the determination of the bonus award. Then I will walk you through a demonstration of the tool itself and wrap up with some of our summary recommendations and how they inform the proposed process changes. And there'll be a few minutes too at the end for questions and answers, assuming you have time for that. Okay, next slide, please. So as I mentioned, Dr. Monique, she is the technical expert, and she's a distinguished HR leader. She's also a consultant and executive coach, as well as an adjunct faculty with over 30 years of experience. And so many of the recommendations in here are informed by her experience in the field, as well as her teaching experience. And for myself, I'm a strategic planner, a culture and implementation consultant, as well as an organizational strategist. And I have been working in both the private and the public sector for 20 years. Okay, next slide, please. So in terms of meeting objectives, what I plan to do today is to really walk you through the proposed modifications for the CEO performance evaluation process so that you can understand what the steps are in your current process and what the changes are for the proposed future process. I'm going to also discuss the transition from the numerical rating structure to the descriptive and what the benefits are for moving to a descriptive process. Then I'll give you the details of each individual descriptive rating so you understand what the differences are. And there are places where the differences are a little bit nuanced, and yet the differences are significant. Then I'll walk you through the actual process, what it would look like for the individual as well as the overall performance evaluation process. And then finally, helping you understand both from a contractual space as well as a rating space, how the steps inform the final decision about the CEO bonus award. And then finally, the demonstration of the online tool. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so at a high level, what are the proposed process changes? The first significant change is you'll be moving from a manual process to an online tool. Now, obviously, when you move from a manual process to an online tool, there's a significant amount of efficiency that's gained. When I do the demonstration, I'll be able to show you the efficiency both for the CEO as well as the board in submitting the evaluations, as well as the efficiency gained towards the end of the process when the chair or the vice chair is going through the summarization process. And then the second change is moving from anonymous to attributable. And I know that there can be some concerns moving from an anonymous process, but I want to talk a little bit about why that matters and the benefits of that. So moving to an attributable process, it really strengthens accountability, and it's sort of a mutual accountability. Now, I want to just pause here and say that while the process becomes attributable in the sense that it's clear who submitted what feedback, when it comes to the summarization of that feedback, this process does not propose that someone's name is attached to specific comments, but for the benefit of the chair and the vice chair being able to seek further clarification and be able to use that clarification to inform the feedback that the CEO ultimately gets, that's where the attribution comes in. And I hope that makes sense. The other piece is that the process allows for more developmental growth feedback. And again, when we go through and you see the narrative components of this process, you'll see that it allows the process to move from purely an evaluative process to a process where the CEO gets feedback that allows them to change in ways that will be both necessary as well as impactful for the organization. And finally, this process allows for more of a mutual respect between the CEO and the board, ultimately showing the CEO that there's alignment between both leadership behavior as well as organizational values. And then finally, the third change is to move from numerical to descriptive. Again, it allows for that richer feedback where a number doesn't really help anyone understand what it means that they're doing. While most of us understand a 1 to 5 rating, typically individuals have different perspectives on what a 1 means and what a 3 means. And in this case, it makes it much clearer and allows for more consistency between raters, so that when one person gives a 3 and another person gives a 3, both of those raters now are using language that allows them to know that their 3s essentially mean the same thing, because they have the description related to what used to be a 3. Okay. All right, next slide. Okay, so here is where I'm walking you through the process, the current process and the proposed process. I don't plan to read everything, but I wanted you to have the side by side so you can see what's changing. And you'll notice that for first step for the current process, the self-evaluation is completed by the CEO. And the same thing is happening with this new process, with the exception of the fact that the CEO also has an opportunity to use the online tool. So that's the biggest change. And then when we get to step 2, this is where there's a board session to do a policy review. That process remains basically the same, where what's happening is the board is getting together to look at various documents, the policy and procedures for the evaluation, the president or CEO's contract, the evaluation forms themselves, what do they look like? Are the questions exactly the way you want them to be? Previously approved board annual goals and objectives for the president and CEO, as well as the association's strategic plan and the CEO self-evaluation form, in which in this case we're proposing that it's the exact same as the evaluation form that the board would be using. Okay, with step 3, the board evaluation forms are completed, and they're done completely anonymously. They're done on paper and then submitted. And in this case, each board member would have a link to the online evaluation tool and be able to enter their evaluation, again, attributing their name to that form so that there can be clear accountability that each board member had an opportunity to submit an evaluation. Okay, with step 4, in the past, or rather currently, the board chair and or vice chair would be manually conducting that data review and doing those calculations, those numerical calculations manually, which can take a lot of time. And for the proposed process, we're proposing that it would be sort of a data compilation process. And again, when I get into the tool itself, you'll see that it's a much faster process, because essentially the tool does the compilation in and of itself, and it also presents essentially a summary presentation within the tool itself, as well as an Excel file that then can be exported and shared as needed. And when it is shared, the attribution, the names that were submitted, can certainly be removed before review by the full board, if that is your wish. And then step 5 in the current process is that there would be another board session to present the summary data and the numerical results that were tallied and pulled together by the board chair and vice chair. And in the new process, all of that is much, much quicker. And the board session, I know you were talking a moment ago about scheduling meetings and that sort of thing. That board session can happen much more quickly, and everything would be available electronically. And in this step 5, this is where the bonus decision occurs. In a moment, I'll be able to walk you through essentially what that process is. It remains the same with one small tweak. Okay, and then after that session has happened and the board has had a vote, as well as the determination of the bonus award, in step 6, the final rating is communicated to the CEO. And for the proposed process, essentially is the same thing. The data is just available electronically to the CEO when that review is conducted. And then the final note here is that that mid-year review evaluation that currently occurs, you'd essentially go through the same thing, but it would be electronic and there's no bonus decision associated with that mid-year evaluation. Okay. Any questions? I know that was relatively quick. Okay, hearing none, I will move forward. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so here is a presentation of the connection between the numerical rating process as well as the proposed structure. So you'll see here that for numerical rating 4, it means exceeds expectation. In the proposed structure, it would be an exceptional rating, and the acronym associated with that would be EX. And then the numerical rating of 3 used to be meets all expectations. Now it would be considered highly effective, which would be HE. Numerical rating number 2 currently means meets most expectations. And what we're proposing is that that would move to be called effective, and the acronym being EF. And number 1 from the numerical rating would be meets some expectations. Now we're proposing that becomes a needs improvement, which would be NI. And 0 would be does not meet expectations. And now we were proposing that that would become an unacceptable UN. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. Here is where I get to walk you through exactly what this means. It's a lot of information on here. We wanted to make sure that you had exactly the language that's in the associated policy document that you will also be getting. But I want to call out a few things. So for the exceptional rating, what that looks like is essentially the CEO has made extraordinary contributions through superior performance. And this performance is reflected in all of the goals. Right? And it needs to be all for it to be considered exceptional. Essentially, they're making significant contributions to the mission, and their achievements are reflected across quality, timeliness, technical expertise, creativity, and initiative. Right? So it needs to be all of those. And while it's a lot, that's what makes it exceptional. And then finally, ultimately, their actions have had a significant impact on the organization. So that's what exceptional means. For highly effective, many of the same sections apply with small tweaks. So here, they're now making significant contributions and impact on the goals generally, right? And that essentially they're making an impact on all the key goals, and they're exceeding expectations, as well as consistently achieving above the established standard. So here, they're performing above the standard, but the expectation isn't that they hit all of the goals across 6 different attributes. They're meeting it across many of them, but it's not every single one. Okay? But all the key goals, objectives, and targets are being consistently met. Now, for effective, they are reliably and consistently meeting the expectations, standards, requirements, and objectives of their position. In addition, they're demonstrating that they have a willingness and ability to grow. So that suggests that there's some things that aren't perfect, but they are willing to grow, and they're showing over the course of the year that that willingness is reflected in their behaviors. And really, you should have some examples of that. Their performance meets expectations based on the quality of their work, their efficiency, and their timeliness as it relates to most of the critical goals. So here, it's not all of the key goals, it's most of the critical goals. So it's still a relatively high standard, but it's not all. Now, for needs improvement, their performance doesn't consistently meet the minimum expectations of the role. They do have the ability and willingness to show progress. However, there is required development in key skill areas that is showing up. And as long as they're willing to take the feedback and start making some improvements, that's what's going to allow them to maybe move to the next level. But failure to be able to start showing improvement could result in some performance management activities. Okay, so essentially, they cannot stay here. Maybe there were some significant things that happened that led to poorer performance than typically is expected, but they can't stay in the space to be able to avoid performance management. And then finally, unacceptable. They are not meeting the minimum expectations for the role at all. Key goals have not been achieved, and there are critical competencies that are really lacking. In this place, immediate action is necessary as it relates to their performance. Okay, any questions or clarifications needed here?
So I just want to give a quick time check that we have 13 minutes left on this agenda item. And I'd actually like to save all the questions until the end of your presentation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide, the rest of the next slides go much more quickly. Okay, so here is an example of how the process works out as it relates to one specific goal level. So assuming 10 board members who are evaluating this goal, you see the various ratings that are there in step 1. In step 2, there's a tally, and essentially you'll notice that effective shows up 6 times, highly effective shows up 3 times, and needs improvement once. And here, the effective rating would be, the performance rating for the goal would be effective because it's the one that shows up the most. Now, in the next slide, if we can move to the next slide, this is how the overall performance rating determination is made. So assuming that there's goal A, B, and C, all of the ratings show up there. You'll see that for goal A, the performance rating ultimately was effective because it's the one that shows up most frequently. For goal B, it's also effective. And for goal C, it needs improvement. For overall, the CEO would get an effective because effective shows up more times than the needs improvement. Okay. Next slide, please. And now assuming you have an even number of board members, there will be situations, or there may be situations where you have a tie. And so the question becomes, well, what do we do with a tie? Okay, so essentially the most favorable approach to the CEO's performance would be the tiebreaker. So in the example that's given, we're doing this at the overall level. So there's goals A through E. There's effective twice, highly effective twice, and what is it here? Exceptional. And so essentially, the highest rating that shows up as a tie is the one that would be the final rating. And so in this case, it would be highly effective. Okay. And in the associated policy document, all of this is explained. Now, as it relates to determining the bonus award, as I understand it, related to the contract you currently have in place, that as long as the CEO's performance is at the effective level and above, 100% of the bonus is given. Now, if it's at needs improvement, there's the option to give 0, 25%, or 50%, and of course, 0 if it would be unacceptable. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, here is where I'm going to do a demonstration, and I wonder if it's possible either for me to start sharing my screen or if our tech support person can go to the link, please. And the link is in the notes section of the slide.
And I would ask that you make the demonstration as quick as possible because we do need to.
I moved to 20 minutes.
Second. This is really important, Michael. I think we should add the time.
I'm not saying we can't.
I just made the motion.
I understand that, Eric.
You seem to be rushing things.
Anyone opposed to that? Online, speak up if you're opposed to that.
Any objections to adding 20 minutes?
Okay.
Kyle and Delilah? Okay.
All right. So we have unanimously added 20 minutes to this.
Okay, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I want to be clear. That's 20 minutes also for us to discuss after the presentation, not just an extra 20 minutes for your presentation.
Don't worry, it will not take 20 minutes. Okay, thank you for clarifying that, though. I appreciate it. Okay, so let me see here if I think I need to have host. Let me click on share and see if it allows me to do it. Yes, it does. Okay, please bear with me. All right. can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So, and I want to show you, actually, I'm going to start right here. So, assuming you're taking the evaluation yourself, this is the page that you would see. You receive the link, and then you just click here, Start Now. At the top, you enter your name, and then you go goal by goal, and these goals are the goals that currently stand for the organization. So you go goal 1, which in this case talks about advancing CA's vision, mission, and values by meeting or exceeding key benchmarks. 4, and then the first one is related to financial leadership, stewardship of resources, and it's an organizational goal. You'll see the bullets that make up all of the important information that needs to be, the important goals and objectives that need to be met as it relates to this broader goal. And then right underneath that explanation would be an opportunity to click the rating for that goal that you'd like to provide. Once you've selected your rating, you click in here and you put in all of your narrative information to explain why you gave that particular rating. And there's no text limitation here. And then you move on and you'll see this is all in one page. So then goal 2 comes up with its explanation and rating, and then a narrative section. Same with goal 3. I'm going to keep going here so you can see what happens at the end. Goal 4, goal 5, goal 6, rating, narrative, and then at the very end here, there's an opportunity to add any additional feedback or recommendations or final comments, and then you simply hit submit. Okay. Now, I would like to go back. This was just the view for if you are submitting the feedback. Here, this is the view that the chair and the vice chair would see. It's a different view because they have essentially additional capabilities that allows them to see the results as well as the attribution and all of that, and be able to summarize that information in anticipation of the review meeting. What I want to be able to show, there's 3 test responses in here just so you can see how this shows up. So down here is where all the questions were, and they're set up in a basically an organizational format to be able to look at what happened to the data. Here you'll see this is the please enter your name. You don't have to use this, but it's a faster way to get the results. Then when you click through, essentially this is similar to a slide presentation. You see the percentages and the ratings for each goal, as well as the commentary, and then it flows through like that all the way to the end. And so it changes based on what the ratings were. So very quickly, you can get your answer as to what the rating should be. Okay, and I'm going to keep moving through so you can see all of them. Okay, here we had 100%. And apologies, I know I'm moving quickly, but I want you to see this, a couple of things before I wrap up. Okay, but you get the gist, and it shows you the total number of responses. And if I close out of here, here is where for the chair and vice chair, you would click on collect responses. It gives you an opportunity to be able to push the request out to both the CEO as well as the other board members. And then here, if you click on view responses, here's where you get a high level view of what is essentially I showed you a moment ago. And it's a slightly different view that can also be downloaded so that you can see it in Excel. And you can check individual results from here. If there's something that you thought was maybe misaligned, you can click on individual responses. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so that I can quickly show you the Excel file that I pull through as well. Okay. Okay. I assume you can see this. If you can't see anything on my screen, please just shout out. When you download the Excel file, what you get essentially is a data download of everything that went in, when people started the survey, when they completed it, what name they provided, and then all of the goals and narrative headings are at the top, as well as the individual scores, the rating scores, as well as the data. So this is more of a raw data view, which would allow the chair and vice chair to quickly be able to summarize the information and pull it together in anticipation of review by the board in that second board meeting. Okay. All right, I will stop sharing here. And our tech support person, if you wouldn't mind going back to the presentation, I think, just one more. Oh, I see a hand up, Colin.
Nope, sorry, I thought you were finished. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. So slide again, please. And then I will be ready to let you all back to your meeting. Okay. So in wrap up, ultimately our summary recommendations are based off of Dr. Monique's experience in the field. Ultimately, as you've seen, we are proposing that the process should not be conducted anonymously. I've walked through why. I've also clarified that access to the individual evaluation submissions is limited to the board chair and vice chair, and access to the CEO self-evaluation is visible to all members. So moving from anonymous doesn't mean now everybody sees everyone's specific feedback. And then also the fact that the process now is going to be more of a collaboration between the board chair and the rest of the board, and that the descriptive ratings really are allowing for that consistency across raters. That's an important component of giving developmental feedback, and it really allows that the CEO to have something meaningful that they can grow from, and of course having an online evaluation tool, as I've shown you, takes a lot of the work out of it, so that much of the summary can be developed relatively quickly based on that raw data from the Excel file. And then of course the ratings, you get that immediate summary for what the ratings were. And that's all from me. If there are any questions, please do let me know.
So I think we're going to have some questions, but I just want to make, before we dive into that, these are clarifying questions about the presentation. They're not debating the merits of what's been proposed, all right? So if you start debating the merits of it, I'm going to cut you off, but if you have clarifying questions, please go ahead. Colin, I think you wanted to jump in, and then I know, Eric, I think you had something you wanted to ask too. Colin?
Well, Mike, my question for you would be if you want to have a motion on the floor for.
Let's let people ask clarifying questions first, if they have any clarifying questions. And then move on. So is there any clarifying questions?
Yeah, so you mentioned a couple of times there's a policy document, and we have, looks like part of a policy in our packet, but what you presented is a lot more extensive than what's in our packet. So what, is there a policy document we're voting on?
Do you have a clarifying question for her presentation?
That was something she mentioned. So I'm trying to figure out where's this policy document? Is that what's in the packet, or is it something else?
Yes. The current CEO evaluation is a policy and procedure. That's what she's referring to. You have that. You've seen it. You've used it.
Yeah, so.
Okay, so that's, Wes, did you have something?
Yeah, you kept mentioning, or frequently mentioned, that you would choose the most frequent evaluation. So you're referring to, like, if this is a numerical scale, that would be the mode rather than the median. So, okay, we'll come back to that. But
yes, that's correct.
Remember clarifying questions, Ashley?
Yep, I was curious, thank you for this presentation. I was curious, when you were considering the possibilities for the new evaluation, was there any consideration given to providing a feedback mechanism so that the CEO can respond, clarify, or appeal to any part of the evaluation?
There wasn't, simply because that would have been inconsistent with your policy as it currently exists. But part of the opportunity for the CEO to receive more descriptive feedback was so that they could have an opportunity to speak with the chair and vice chair in that meeting they have and be able to ask those questions of the chair and vice chair. But the intention is not for the CEO to be able to ask clarifying questions, because they're not supposed to ultimately know through this process who gave them that feedback. And to be able to ask that clarifying question about specific feedback point, they would need to know which board member provided it.
Thank you.
Sky?
Yeah, this goes along with what Wesley was asking, but I'm not sure how. You use the mode rather than the mean, and I have a gut understanding of the difference, but I can't verbalize why the mode would be more appropriate here. Could you help us out?
Yes, absolutely. And from moving from a numerical to a descriptive rating, the mode is most appropriate because there essentially is no way to be able to get at the median of a qualitative rating structure. I see a hand is up. Is that what's happening?
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Anyone else before we let Eric have his second question? All right, go ahead, Eric.
Before I ask,
No, it's not before you ask, it's a question.
Oh, okay. So the question I have is actually just a couple questions. I just want to walk through a couple more examples of how because I know there's been a couple questions on the math, so I'd like to just walk through a couple questions. So say I've got 3 unacceptables, 3 needs improvements, and 4 effectives. What would the result be for that? 4 EFs, 3 NIs, and 3 UNs?
Wait, so you said it was 3 UNs.
3 NIs and 4 EFs. Well,
the 4 EFs would be the driver.
okay, so now if the 2 people from the UN upgraded themselves to NIs, so we got now 1 UN, 5 NIs, and 4 EFs, what would the result be?
It'd be NI.
So by virtue of the fact that 2 board members upgrade the result from UN to NI, the result gets downgraded? Does that make sense?
Simply because it's the greatest greatest rating that shows up. Now, an upgrade, if I may answer it here, an upgrade in this case would not be possible if you're asking about it happening sort of in real time, simply because you wouldn't know what ratings other people gave when you're providing your rating.
I understand that, but I don't understand why if 2 board members give a better result, that the rating declines. I don't understand how that makes sense.
Eric, she's answered your question. The answer is it's because we use the mode, and you're putting forward a counterfactual that she already says won't come into play because it'll be anonymous. Any other questions?
The question is...
No, your question's been answered.
Okay, we'll get to it.
Any other clarifying questions? Okay, I really appreciate your time. And I think we'll move on to more board discussion unless, Monica, did you have a second part of this or?
No, I don't have a second part of this, but what we will ultimately do is accept feedback, obviously, because this is a proposed state. And so if there are any other elements that need to be considered, we will certainly go and work with those items as well. So I just want to make that clear.
And one thing I do want to make clear before we hand it over is there's actually 2 things in the packets, and we just had a presentation on the policies and procedures. The other element in the packet was actual changes to the, let me make sure I get this terminology correct. I just want to make sure it's the evaluation criteria themselves are also changing. I want to make sure that's not lost on people, all right? That it's moved from being solely based on annual goals to being the annual goals are one of the eval factors and that their other goals are year-over-year factors. I just want to make sure that's clear because we didn't hit on that. All right. Ashley, did you want to?
Yeah, my question's more for Monica, so it's actually kind of touching on what Mike just said. Is there any plan for training orientation for board members each year to ensure that we're all looking at it through a consistent lens?
Absolutely.
Evaluating, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, does someone want to make a motion now? Colin, if you're raising your hand, I can't see you.
I am.
Okay, Colin, go ahead.
I would like to move to approve and adopt the proposed President CEO performance evaluation policy and procedure as presented in the packet.
I second it.
Okay.
Point of information. Is the motion approving what's in the packet or approving the policy documents that that the presenter was referring to?
As I understood what Colin was saying, it's what's in the packet.
Because the presentation has a whole bunch of other stuff that's not in the packet.
I think the presentation was providing context around what's in the packet for clarity. Karen?
So what we're voting on is, what I'm looking at here is proposed president, CEO, performance evaluation policy and procedure. This document right here? That's all we're voting on?
I don't know, my eyesight's not that good, Karen, I'm sorry.
Well, it's in your packet, and it says proposed president, CEO, performance evaluation policy and procedure. And I want to make sure that's what we're voting on. And it's got about 5 pages. Monica, is that what you're expecting us to be voting on?
Yes.
Okay.
Colin, can you confirm that that's what you were?
Yes, indeed. My iPad's a little wonky, but it seems that it ends on page 90 of the packet. So it starts on page 86.
And I do, again, want to make a clarifying point that the presentation, I think you're making a bit of a false distinction between the presentation and the packet, that the presentation was providing context around that policy. Bill?
May I?
Go ahead.
Just wanted to say that this, what I'm sharing on the screen, is the accompaniment to the presentation that I just gave. And essentially, it walks through the same evaluation process that was in the presentation, with the exception of I didn't go through your annual schedule. And then you'll see down here, the descriptive ratings are explained as they was in my presentation. And then at the end, the examples are given to help understand how the process works. And then finally, the frequently asked questions at the end. So I didn't walk through that, but essentially this was the basis for the presentation. They're essentially one and the same.
Thank you. Bill?
I just want to get a clarification here.
Are you making a point of information, or?
Oh, I'm asking a question. The reference that Colin provided, page 90 on our packet, is that procedure the same thing as what appeared in the email that we received on Wednesday morning? That attachment.
This is why we should not be voting on.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The procedure that appears, that starts on page 90 of our packet that Colin has pointed to.
Yes.
Is that the same procedure as the attachment that was provided Wednesday morning?
Yes.
To us? I just wanted to make sure I had that clear.
Yes.
Thank you for that. That really helps a lot.
Point of information, does the policy we're voting on actually include the calculation for the CEO bonus? Because the presentation included a calculation for the CEO bonus, but this policy does not include a calculation for the CEO bonus.
The calculation is part of his contract, I believe, right, Monica?
No, but as it relates to.
Point of information, it's on page 4 at the top of evaluating performance.
All right, so Colin has moved to approve the policy and procedure. Do we have any discussion on the substance?
I have another hand.
Okay, go ahead, Colin.
Sorry. I would like to add an amendment. I would like to amend this policy to create a 3AI to read, each evaluation form must include the board member's name. Individual evaluations are not anonymous. The identity of the evaluator will be included in the compiled results and summary report. And I'm happy to read that again if you need me to, Mike.
Okay, so Colin has essentially moved to take out all the anonymity from it, is essentially the meaning of what he just said, if I understand correctly, right, Colin?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Ashley seconded.
Point of information on Colin's amendment. Does that mean every board member will know how every other board member voted?
Correct.
Amendment?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Karen?
Yes, I actually would like our expert, Abina, I apologize if I don't say your last name properly, Apawa, to weigh in on this, because she basically said that it should be anonymous. And I would like to know, what are if we make it so that it's not anonymous, what are the repercussions of that? And I had another question, but I think this is more important for the amendment that Colin offered.
Okay. So I think there's different levels of transparency when it comes to a process like this. The process that you currently have in place is completely anonymous, And the process that I was recommending and that Dr. Monique also recommended was that it's sort of a partial transparency where the chair and the vice chair know who submitted the comments, but that information is not shared with the rest of the board or the CEO. And what's now being proposed is 100% transparency. From my perspective, I think it really depends on the organizational values. There can be repercussions from having 100% transparency, but it also creates a very high level of mutual accountability and respect. And essentially, it's an organizational decision whether the culture lends itself to 100% transparency or if the culture is such that there needs to be more of a middle step. And that's not a determination that I can make. But our recommendation is that given where you are, that meeting at the middle step might be a more appropriate place to go for now. And you may set a goal over the next 2 to 3 years to make it 100% transparency.
Thank you.
Colin, I think you have your hand up.
I do. And Abina, thank you so much for that clarification. And thank you, Karen, for that question. Because I think that we should definitely strive for 100% transparency. And I think that having mutual accountability is a great thing. When we have board votes that are happening like they are right now, those board votes are recorded. We know how people voted. We know what the discussion is. I think that that's process is only fair when it's similarly done for feedback to the CEO. So that's why I would advocate for this amendment. Over and out.
It's nice to hear that.
Any other discussion on Colin's amendment? Eric?
I mean, in the past meetings, we've talked about the need for this board to speak with one voice. And if we essentially are sending 10 different appraisals with 10 different comments attributed to 10 different people, I question whether we're speaking with one voice anymore and we're speaking with 10 voices. So I think this amendment basically is in the direction of speaking with 10 voices and not one voice. So I would be against it.
Okay. Anyone else? Sky?
How that settles in my mind is that what we're doing in the evaluation is closed. It's in a closed session. Therefore, we do not need to speak with one mind. But when we state the results in an open meeting or in a conversation with somebody else, then we would speak with one mind.
But Sean,
no. Anyone else before we go back to Eric? Reg?
Okay, I've been thinking about this and mulling it over. I do have a concern with, letting everyone know how I voted or how anybody else voted. I mean, that's my private business. I don't want the pressure of somebody coming in and saying, well, you voted against, you didn't give him a high enough rating or you gave him too high of a rating. That's my business. That's my private decision how I vote. Now, the chair and the vice chair, I understand that you're going to, co-locate and coordinate what the results are. But for every swinging member of this board to know how I voted and to be used against me if I don't vote the appropriate way, I can't stand it, the whole idea of it. Because it makes it so that we don't have the ability to speak and to have our vote, which is sacred anywhere we go, our vote, not in here as a board member, but our vote to rate. And I'm not saying that, we should use it to beat up the president. That's not it at all. What I'm saying is that I don't want it coming back on me. And right now, you have the opportunity, many of you, to say, okay, we've got enough votes to do whatever we want. But one day the roles may be reversed. So think about that before you say, hey, let's open it up to everybody knowing how I voted. I have a real problem with that.
Ashley?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that what we're talking about is a performance evaluation and assessment, not a political vote, and that it's important when you're evaluating any employee in an organization that they have the ability to address the comments that they receive, the feedback that they receive. And I think any CEO that we put in this position understands that they are working with 10 separate individuals and personalities, and that it's not one voice that's happening at one time. And that anybody should be able to speak to the evidence for why they submitted their evaluation at a certain level. Again, it's not a vote, it's a performance evaluation that affects the livelihood of the person running this organization.
Wes, I think you were trying to jump in.
Yeah, so I was kind of to follow on with what was being said is that I think that as we move towards more transparency in how the board is operating with each other, I think that that's something where if there's something that we can address, I can understand more completely concerns that folks have if we're able to talk about them in a completely transparent way. But I think that to the point of speaking with one voice, once we have come to some conclusion about where we're going and what that evaluation is, that's when we would speak with one voice. But we are able to have a level of discourse amongst each other in that full transparency mode. That's my thought.
I see you, Eric, and Reg, I see you as well. Bill, you haven't spoken. Did you want to chime in? You don't have to.
Not at this time, but
Okay.
I'll reserve my right.
Delilah, you haven't spoken on this. Did you want to jump in?
I think so. I just want to caution my fellow board members against creating a false power dynamic. The CEO doesn't have power over us, and this is his evaluation that we are completing. So we are the ones with power over him. So I'm confused about the narrative of like it coming back to get you if he knows how you voted, or not voted, but how you evaluated him. I also would like to echo what Ashley said, that imagine getting an evaluation from someone in the company you work for, but you don't know who it came from or what the feedback really was, who it was attributed to. So I think we need to be careful about, like, we still need to think of it as we are giving an employee their feedback for their evaluation.
Okay. Colin, I see you have your hand up for your second turn. Do you want to go?
I would like to call the question on this amendment.
Point of information? On the amendment, under your amendment, would the president also get the individual grades and individual comments from each individual attributed to the individual on the board?
Colin, that was a question for you.
I have a question for the
Yep, I'm reading what I wrote. Each evaluation form must include the board member's name. Individual evaluations are not anonymous. The identity of the evaluator will be included in the compiled results and summary report. So yes, the president will see the names of how people voted.
And
or ranked, sorry.
Would also see the comments they put
All
down, right?
Yeah, so the answer to your question was yes.
Okay.
Colin has called the question. Is there any objection to calling the question? Okay, so now we're going to vote on Colin's amendment. I'm going to read his amendment one more time. So it is going to change item 3 alpha 1 in the policy to read, each evaluation form must include the board member's name. Individual evaluations are not anonymous. The identity of the evaluator will be included in the compiled results and summary report. So a vote yes will change this to Colin's amendment. A vote no will keep it as it is in the packets.
Can I ask a question quick? Yeah, is that final report public, released publicly?
No, this is all still be in closed meeting. This will still be closed meeting, yes.
Motion to add 5 minutes.
Anyone object to adding 5 minutes?
Friendly amendment made to 10.
You got to.
I'm fine.
Any objection to adding 10 minutes? Okay, so we are now going to vote on Colin's amendment. Ashley?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Delilah?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Wes?
Yes.
Karen?
No.
Reg?
No.
Sky?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. It carries 7-3. Okay, now we are back to the main motion of approving the what the policy is that's in the packet. Ashley?
I had a quick clarification. Eric had mentioned it not having the formula in there, and I don't see the one where it talks about the percentage of bonus.
It's not in there.
Oh, the grid that was.
Yes, correct, yeah.
Yeah, it's not in there, so we're not voting on it.
That's my concern.
But the bonus is in the contract.
No, it's not. The bonus is not in the contract
Hold on.
as it applies
Monica,
to this.
could you address this?
So the presentation was done so that we can show all of the information. And so if the little grid is not in the policy, that's just an oversight. We can put that on there. But the bottom line is that is the way that it has always been. The operation has always gone. It's not any different than the way it has always gone. So it's a minor detail from that perspective, but we can certainly put it in there.
Eric, your question has been addressed. Any other, we're on the main motion now?
Point of clarification.
Eric, you're making many points of clarification, and they're not accepting their answers. So if you're asking the same one again, you're going to wear out the number of times you get to ask point of clarification. Go ahead.
I'll pass.
Okay. Karen?
Yeah, it just feels like we're not ready to vote on this. What is the harm of waiting till the next meeting to make sure we have the policy complete? Collins' amendment can be in there. The chart that Monica just referenced can be in there. What is the harm of waiting to vote on this until next month?
The mid-year will be new.
Motion to table.
Second.
Okay. Eric has motioned to table.
Colin's got his hand up.
Yeah, but there's no discussion on this.
I mean,
Karen?
Can I make a second comment too?
No, you can't. There's no discussion on these. All right, so we're going to have a vote on a motion to table. A vote yes will move this to next month. A vote no will continue the discussion tonight. Ashley?
No.
No. Colin?
No.
Bill?
No.
Delilah?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Wes?
No.
Karen?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Sky?
No.
And I will vote no. Motion to table fails. We're now on the main motion still.
Colin's hand up.
Colin, go ahead.
Abina, would you so kindly put up the slide that does have that matrix?
My concern and reason, can the motion to approve be with including that for clarification, so there's no issue?
Well, Ashley, that's what I'm going to do
Okay.
right now. Yes. So I would like to move to add this matrix to the policy.
All right, so Colin, do you accept that? Sky, you seconded his motion, so as long as you accept this, it's a friendly amendment.
Yes.
Okay, Sky is
Yes,
shaking her
friendly.
head yes. So
Great,
that
thank
matrix
you.
is now included.
And Mike, I'd like to, so this was a friendly amendment to the main motion, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I would like to call the question on the main motion.
Any objection?
Object.
Okay, so we're going to have a vote to end debate.
There needs to be a second, Mike.
Oh, there needs to be a second. Thank you, Colin.
I think Wes seconded.
No, hold on. Well,
There needs to be, Colin has moved to end debates.
No.
There needs to be a second for that. Anyone want to make a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. This will end debate and we will then immediately vote on the policy. This needs a 7 to carry. Ashley?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Delilah?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Wes?
no.
Karen?
No.
Reg?
No.
Sky?
Yes.
And I will vote yes, motion fails. All right, so we are now on the main motion still. Wes, go ahead.
So I'm trying to think about how to actually make a motion, but I would like to move towards a median rather than a mode. It's not a reliable statistic for us to use in this context, I think. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to calculate that. You have a ranked hierarchy, you pick the median. Like the median.
Do you have a?
I don't have words for it yet. Sorry, I haven't had a chance to write it up.
I think if you just, can't he just say if I move from change it from mode to median? I move then, instead of using the mode, we use the median? Except that it's not a numerical calculation.
Hold on.
You can do that.
I understand.
It's a hierarchy, so if you have a hierarchy, the number above and below, you pick the median. You absolutely can do it.
So I understand what you're trying to get at, but we actually need a motion. So, Ashley, you want to jump in?
In the meantime, could Abina weigh in on why your organization recommended the mode over the median?
Absolutely. We're recommending the mode over the median because the mode reflects more of the will of the voting members.
Okay, any other discussion on, Delilah, go ahead.
In other nonprofits you've worked with, is using the mode is it ubiquitous? What do you see folks typically use?
Typically, this is what we see, especially with nonprofits and where there are board members, because the will of the board is what is supposed to be the driver for feedback. But happy to explore other options if there's a strong will to look at the median instead. I'm happy to go back and speak with Dr. Monique about her experience as well, since she's the technical expert.
Eric.
So actually, if we go back like 2 or 3 policies ago, we actually did use the median. 2 or 3 policies ago actually had the median. So if we go back to the policy before the one we have, the one that was replaced last spring, that actually calculated the median, actually using the qualitative responses. Using the mode, I don't think is mathematically sound for the reason that people could upgrade the result and you get a lower response, or conversely, people could downgrade the result and you get a better overall answer, and that doesn't make any sense. And this comes down to voting theory, which I'm not going to get into because it gets into fairly complex mathematics. But the mode doesn't work for this because we have a hierarchy, and if you take the mode, you run into the situation where someone could say they're between two grades and they give a higher grade, and giving a higher grade actually reduces the overall score. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that represents the will of the board. I don't think that makes any sense. So I think that this policy, the way it is not appropriate for this organization. I don't think these calculations work. So I would like to, I move that we direct staff to look at an alternate calculation that uses the median.
Good to say.
Did Wes second that?
I would second that we use an effective median. I don't think that would at all change the will of the board.
Okay, no one has seconded your motion, Eric. Sky?
I thought Wes did.
So repeat your motion specifically so I can know exactly what I'm agreeing to.
My motion
If
is...
you're motioning to use an effective median for the calculation, I would second that.
My motion is to direct staff to prepare a version of this that uses the effective median that we can consider at a later
Can we not
meeting.
just make a motion to amend that to use that now?
Because I would like to see how it works, because this is going to get complicated.
Oh, okay. So
I'll second his motion. We want to see what.
Okay.
What I see is a very real risk for 2, 2, 2, 3, or something like this, and then the 3 overwhelms what is a spread across the other ones. It can very easily happen here.
Okay, so we have another amendments. Before we vote on this, can I get a motion to add 10 minutes to the time?
I'll move to add 10 minutes.
Anyone object?
Did anyone second it?
Ashley moved, you seconded, Karen.
Okay.
All right, so we're adding 10 minutes. All right, now we're going to discuss Eric's amendments. Any discussion?
Which is?
Eric's amendment is to direct the staff to come up with a alternative to use a mean mechanism.
No, median.
Median, I'm sorry, median. Sky.
I vote for using the mode. I consider it the most.
We're not voting right now. It's just discussion.
I know. So
okay.
I would if we were. The mode to me, is the most popular, the most popular vote of the people. And in a mode system, the outliers are much less powerful than they are in a mean situation.
Ashley?
What if we reported the median for the formal evaluation score, but we still showed the mode and distribution to allow for the transparency?
That is an option.
Like, there's values in both because mode is showing the majority of the board, even though it's not the, oh, that's not my timer. Even though it's not reflecting the average.
Bill?
I'm a little confused with Eric's statements about multiple rounds of voting for what these evaluations are. No one's upgrading anything here. This is a one-shot deal. You fill out the form, it goes through, and it compiles on a spreadsheet. That's what was discussed here today. We're not talking about upgrading or downgrading votes after multiple rounds here. I think that the point is well taken that you could have a 2-2-2-3, and that would be less than an ideal spread. There is all possibilities under any of these regimes. The other that I see, and that I'll just say the other that I can see is that if you use a mean or median, a single unacceptable can tank the entire board.
So,
hold on.
So that is my concern there. And then you get into what are you start self-dealing into what are the least unappealing options. But I think what we'll find is that for most of these evaluations, we will find that in using the mode, it will reflect the will of the board more accurately.
Karen?
The policy does not state that the voting ever gets turned off. So why can't you go in and change your scores?
Wes?
To the point of an outlier an outlier will not affect the median. So by using the median, if you have a low score and a high score, they're out. So you're picking, rather than a mean where you have, or if you're accidentally there, so it is picking the one where there are equal numbers above and equal numbers below. So you will find out it's much more closer to the average. Not the actual average, it's not a mean, but the median will be the one which allows for outliers to be lost, but not to have one accidental accumulation of a bunch of votes turn into the actual vote, whereas a mode will do that. Sure. So median is the one that allows you to kind of filter out the outliers, but still get right in the center where you want to be.
Any other discussion on Eric's amendments? Karen, for your second time.
It is my second time, but again, I want to emphasize, Michael, are we going to add anything to this policy that says at a certain point, where is the voting cutoff? So you can't go back into the tool, if we're going to buy, are we going to buy a tool apparently? You can't go back into the tool and change your rating. At what point, because the policy doesn't indicate that. It doesn't talk about any kind of from what I can see, there's no timeline in here that says, once the board meets, is that final?
I understand your question. I'm going to defer to our consultant, and because I assume the answer is that once you hit submit, that your thing is submitted, that your vote is submitted.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And in addition to that, in the policy document, there is a timeline that clearly states there's a specific period where the evaluation process is conducted. And the form, it's simply Microsoft Forms. The form can be closed for submissions after that specific time frame is over. So the form is not always collecting responses. I showed you in the demo, there's a button at the top where you have to click collect responses. And then when you have not clicked that or you unclick that, it's no longer accepting responses.
Okay. Okay.
Bill, were you trying to jump in? This is your second time, by the way.
I'm not going to use my second time.
Okay. Anyone else want to discuss Eric's motion? Ashley, it's your second time.
I can see the value for median and for mode. My final opinion on it really is that this is what the staff has presented to us from Maryland Nonprofits, which is certainly an expert in our region and has worked with lots of nonprofits. I think it makes sense for us to try it as it's been proposed and amended with the anonymity being removed. Because we're not stuck with it, as is evident. This policy has been reviewed and changed multiple times, and at minimum, it'll be reviewed every 5 years just from our efforts to review policies regularly. So if it doesn't work after 1 year, then we can change it.
Any other discussion on Eric's amendment? Okay. Then we'll move on to the vote. A yes vote will accept Eric's amendment, which is to direct staff to come back to us next month with an option in the policy to adopt a median rating. Any questions on what the amendment, or on what the proposed amendment is and what a yes vote means? Okay, Ashley.
No.
Colin, is Colin still on?
No.
No. Bill.
No.
Delilah.
No.
Eric.
Yes.
Wes.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Reg.
Yes.
Sky.
Oh,
You said no?
no.
And I will vote yes. That's 5-5. The motion fails.
Also vote yes.
So now we are
Also vote yes.
back to the main motion
Mike voted yes.
as amended. Thank you.
You vote yes.
Mike, I voted
All right, so we are on the main motion now. Any further discussion on the main motion? Eric, go ahead. This is your second time.
Yeah, I don't believe this motion, this policy is ready to be voted on. I mean, it's clear that it just showed up in the packet yesterday. The public hasn't had a chance to see it. We've got a perfectly good policy right now that Sean requested that the board approve last spring, which we did. I don't see any reason to rush this. So I think we should, if we're going to vote on it, we should vote it down, just because there hasn't been enough time for this board to consider this policy.
Okay, anyone else for discussion on the main motion? Karen, for your second time.
Yeah, Michael, at the beginning of the meeting, I asked a question about how long before we hold our meetings do we have to provide information for the residents to be able to review it? You said we would get back to that, and now we're voting on this. They've only had 24 hours. Do you know what that rule is? Are we violating it?
No, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I mean, we have to have a packet out there to tell people what we're discussing. I don't believe there's anything that says we have to have the full details of everything we're discussing in there. But we can have John follow up on that. Any other discussions on the main motion as amended? I do want to ask, maybe if I need to make this an amendment, Monica, I will. But I just want to get a sense from the board that everyone understands that Goal 6 is going to change every year, right? Goal 6 is basically the annual objectives. As it's written in the packet in the form, it's using last year's.
Mike?
Yes.
Point of information on that.
Yes.
I think that was going to be a question I had for Sean, Monica, and John, if the tool should be a separate motion, because the original motion was just the policy and procedure, not the actual tool, if that makes sense.
I don't think it does make sense. I think the tool is implied in the, or I think it's kind of explicit in there. So does everyone understand that Goal 6 is the current year's annual objectives, not 2 years ago's annual objectives? And we're not going to have issues with that. Go ahead, Eric.
So.
Sorry, I'm going to motion add 10 minutes.
Anyone object? Oh, actually, Eric, you've already had your 2 turns. Does anyone else? I think everyone understands that, so I just wanted to get that on the record.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it because
So goals, I'll explain it then. Goal 6, if you look at the goals in the objectives, the goals have changed so that they will all be the same year over year, with the 6th goal being an evaluation on how the CEO is performing against the annual goals for that year. The sub-bullets under Goal 6 right now just happen to list the ones from last year.
several months ago, we passed goals for the
Eric,
CEO.
Eric,
The question I have is, several months ago, we passed goals for the CEO. Does this policy now undo those goals or put more goals on top of the goals we just passed? Because we passed a set of goals for the CEO several months ago.
Eric, I understand your question. I understand your question.
Is this taking that over?
I understand your question. The answer is no. The annual goals will still be in there as part of Goal 6, and the other goals are changing now. All right. So, any other discussion on the main motion as amended?
Could you repeat the amendment that's part of the motion now?
Yes, it was Collins that we approved already, which effectively was to take out the anonymity, right? That's you voted in support of the amendments. I'll reread the amendments. So each evaluation form must include the board member's name. Individual evaluations are not anonymous. The identity of the evaluator will be included in the compiled results and summary report. That is a new version of 3A1 in the policy. Bill, are you trying to jump in now?
No, I was just putting my mic on because I anticipate a vote coming up.
Anyone else to discuss?
I might be confused. Isn't there also a motion for the bonus award matrix to be included?
Yes, that was a friendly amendment. Yes, thank you. Yes, so it will also include the bonus award matrix. Any other discussion? Okay. So now we are voting on the main motion with those two amendments, which we just discussed to approve this new evaluation policy. Ashley?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
Bill?
I knew there was a vote coming up. Yes.
Delilah?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Wes?
No.
Karen?
No.
Reg?
No.
Sky?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So the motion carries. Okay, so now we are on to the budget, the strategic priorities for the budget.
Yes, CFO Sean McCullum is going to present to the board.
Thank you, Abina.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. I assume that I can exit now?
Yep, all set. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. The slides I'm going to review with you is consistent on the memo that was included in your package. It's the same concepts, but except in the PowerPoint. So this is simply a reminder of where we are. And as you know, we kicked off the process with the town hall. We had our September 25th meeting, and now in October. And the discussion we're going to talk about really is about priorities that we heard you have last week, in the last meeting, and we're going to talk about those. But this is simply, showing in the process where we are. And then also important to point out that we still have 5 more meetings for public and community members to come in and participate in the process. I just wanted to highlight to the board, as we start working on the FY27 budget, there's some external constraints coming at us. And healthcare costs went up by 8.5%. And all our insurance, including general liability, property, auto, and so forth, they're up 10%. They renew all these policies. And during my last meeting with the board, we talked about quantifying what the tariff impact would be. So I went back and it ranged from $500,000 to $1 million, depending on, but we're looking at least $500,000 or so, because prior to January of this year, average tariff was about 2%, and as of September, according to research, is about 16% higher, 18%. Obviously, there's a lot of variability in that, but these are, high to ends up with. So that's where that 16% is coming in. And also, the interest revenue is declining because, as you heard, the Fed already reduced the rates, and I believe potentially there's 2 more quarter-point rates coming in and going into FY27. They're also indicating willingness to probably take another point or so. So we are indicating a 10% decline in our year-over-year revenue in FY27. So those are some of the high-level headwinds coming our way, and they will be all reflected in our FY27 budget, simply on the same ground.
Karen, we're gonna let him get through the conversation before having a discussion.
So this talks about the process, the discussion that we had, and then in terms of expectations, what is expected from the board in November, December, which you have heard us say that many times before. But I think that this is where we need to talk about and let the board discuss and let us know. So there were about 4 priorities that we heard. I listened to the board meeting several times and talked to a couple of people. And number 1 is resource resilience and awareness of value. And as you can see, talked about focusing on attaining AAA credit rating, funding long-term capital as we discussed, and talk about maintenance of assets and reducing resident costs. And the second bullet is affordability and accessibility. And then again, this is looking at the membership plans, rates, and service offerings. And then again, under B, assess CA's compliance with the ADA, how we are doing with our facilities and ADA standards. And C is increased access to before and after school programs. Bill, I believe that was coming from you. And then number 3 is the environmental sustainability, and expand solar installations and look at other programs to reduce resident utility costs and talk about solar panels and what have you. And then going down to enhance and implement invasive, talk about plant and wildlife efforts. And final and number 4 was the community connection and modernization. I believe, Mike, some of these came from your input: improve website functionality, increase versatility, a GIS tool, continue to upgrade and enhance IT systems. So in a nutshell, this is what we heard the board say to us. And we just need the board to consider, discuss, and let us know which ones are your priorities, and so we can go to work.
Well, I'll just add, these were we just consolidated what your priorities were, so these are the priorities.
Right,
So you would
right.
want to vote to approve these as your priorities.
Thank you. Yep, sure.
Wait. Karen, I think you had a clarifying question on the kind of the headwinds we were facing.
Yeah, I do. And if you let me, Michael, I'll ask both my questions, because I now have a question about this as well. And I'm sure
Just ask your question about that other one, because this is really a question for the board. Go ahead.
on our insurance policy, I can't remember, if you could just refresh my memory, are we a self-insured or a fully insured?
We're fully insured.
We're fully insured.
Yeah.
So our premiums went up by 8.5%. Was that, did we have like an outlier and our premiums went up, or is it just in general, they went up 8.5%? There was no health condition or anything like that?
No, it was actually the prior experience. Our CA organization, it's been almost 2%, 0, and finally CARE First looked at us. Believe it or not, they actually came with 14.5% increase. So we were able to go back, push back and negotiate, take them down to 8.5%, and that took us to go to market and get additional bids, and it was a lot of negotiations, but yeah, there was no bad experience and simple market demand.
Okay, is our company large enough? Would it be worthwhile for us to investigate becoming a self-insured plan, or do we expect that we would have like some outlier claim for something that would shoot costs up?
Coming back from 20 years of self-insured organizations, this is too small of an organization. We're talking about probably 217 people participating.
Okay.
And it takes one liver transplant, you're in $2 million into it. And so at this point, it doesn't make sense, but that's always an option we'll look at every year. And I asked the same question, and the expert said it just makes no sense given your size.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Bill, did you have a question on on any of the clarifying stuff, or just about you want to hop in for the discussion on priorities?
Not just yet.
Okay. All right, so, Colin, are you asking a clarifying question, or are you looking to move on to the discussion?
The latter, do we need a motion?
Yes, so to get started the discussion, we do need a motion.
Yes. So moved.
You're moving to approve these as the priorities for the next budget?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Colin has moved to accept the board goals outlined at our last meeting as the priorities for fiscal year 26. And Ashley has seconded.
I'm sorry, is it 26, 27?
27, I'm sorry, thank you, 27.
Yeah.
Starting the fiscal year in May throws me off. Thank you. Okay, I've been hanging Karen up, so I'm gonna let her go first. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. What would it cost for us to accelerate our move to solar? What would it take for us to become 100% solar? I mean, I guess I should ask, what is our current goal for us to be 100% solar? And if we wanted to accelerate that, what would that mean? I'm waiting for you to tell Jeremy to answer.
We'll come back to you with that information. That's a complex question that we don't have the information for right now. We can speculate, but if you want to know the exact answer, we'll come back to the next.
Thank you.
Sky, you were going to jump in?
Are
see you are.
those priorities in order? Usually when you number them, they are in order rather than bulleted. Just an editorial comment.
Are they in order of priority?
Yes.
No,
Importance.
they were just kind of how they were presented. We just put them in that order. The numbering order is how they relate to the strategic plan, either the strategic focus areas or the areas of emphasis. So that's what the numbered items are, and just reflect where they are, where they would sit in the strategic plan.
Eric, did you?
Yeah, I have one question and one motion. I'll do the question first. Under 3A, how would we reduce resident utility costs? I mean, don't we all get energy through like BGE and those type of companies?
I can answer that. Bill had requested
Bill,
that.
yeah. So, I can speak to that, and I'd like to jump in also if I can sneak in and smuggle here. The way this works is that utility rates during the summer get very high because Maryland has to purchase electricity from neighboring states through PJM. Now, if we generate solar within the county and within the state, that offsets the purchases that need to be made out of state, thereby reducing overall rates.
So
do you understand that?
Would that change who I get energy from?
No, because the solar goes out on the line and helps maintain your line voltage.
If you want your bill to go down, sign up for community.
No. We're not gonna do an electrical engineering conversation here about how the grid works.
Oh, goodness. I can hope.
So, Bill, I'm gonna get back to you for your motion, Eric. Bill, did you have something on
one of the things that I don't see in our objectives here, I was fairly passionate about, we're losing the Department of Education, and we have gotten our grant funding with the Howard County, the Community Foundation of Howard County up and running, and I think we need to, as part of this next budget, really address increasing that amount to the Community Foundation to help meet the needs of folks who will fall short because the safety net is going away. I mean, we can either sponsor Friday night spaghetti nights for a year, or we can ask the Community Foundation to help us out with helping to make sure kids and people who don't have a lot get it,
I don't want to waste my time.
get a little more assistance through their system, which won't be addressed by changes that are being made at the Department of Education level. So I would like to see that get reinstated somewhere amongst these four priority areas, because I think it's really important. It's I know a lot of people who've been out of work for almost a month now, and things are not getting better out there. And I think we should be part of the solution. And there are some ways that we can do that. And I think we ought to put some real thought into it as part of our budgeting process here.
Okay. Anyone else that hasn't spoken yet? Wes, go ahead.
I think the answer is probably just a simple yes, but under enhance and implement invasive plant and wildlife efforts, that would include deer population management. Okay, great, perfect. That's all.
Go ahead, Karen. This is your second time?
Yeah, that's fine. I wanted to ask a question about glyphosate, and I know we're using it to.
Is this a budget question?
Yes, because we talked about invasive plant and wildlife efforts. And so I want to know, there is a movement to ban glyphosate because it is a forever chemical. And is there any other way to address the bamboo invasives if we don't have that tool available to us?
We can come back at a later meeting and if you want that information.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I move that we modify D just slightly, evaluate resident costs with an emphasis on reducing the annual charge.
So did you just make a motion?
Yes, I just made a motion.
Second.
I just made a motion to clarify D and add the text with the emphasis of reducing the annual charge.
Sorry, that was probably me breaking up. Eric, did you say 1D?
Yes. So I moved to modify 1D to add the text with the emphasis on reducing the annual charge.
Okay, so Eric has moved to alter 1D to add with emphasis on reducing the annual charge, and Karen had seconded. Any discussion on that? Bill?
Yeah, if we're going to discuss reducing the annual charge, I think we need to put on the table what services and facilities we're looking to do without. We've got a situation here where if we reduce the annual charge, we will have to reduce what we provide to the residents of Columbia. I don't see anything in this motion that would allow for that.
Wes?
Yeah, my perspective is that it should be an unbiased outcome when evaluating reducing resident costs is a trade between just what you were saying, right? And so I would prefer it not to go in with a conclusion in mind that we're trying to reach.
Karen, I saw your hand first, and then Sky.
Yeah, I didn't know if I had another turn or not. I was going to say.
You do on the amendment, yeah.
Yeah, so on the amendment, when Bill's asking, what can we not do? Well, we could not add extra money into the reserve fund. That would be one place that we could save money because we are funding that adequately. And every year then we put way more into it than the original policy actually called for, so.
Sky?
Aren't we already in the process of analyzing to see if we can reduce the assessment?
No.
Isn't that something that we had talked about last year?
We're doing a membership rate study, which is separate from that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion on, go ahead, Eric.
So to Bill's point, this is a budget we're considering. Budgeting involves trade-offs. So anything you put on the list, you have to trade off with something else. So if we spend money on anything on this list, you should ask the question, what aren't we getting? By spending money here, you can't spend money there. So the whole process of budgeting is about trade-offs. And so this is just another trade-off, along with everything else on this list. They're all trade-offs. So part of the role of this board is to look at, discuss, evaluate trade-offs, and this is just another trade-off.
Yep.
Besides, I'm sorry.
I'll also mention, you seem to be very akin to adding more money to the community foundation. Where are you getting that money from?
Colin? Oh, Delilah.
I didn't have anything.
Delilah, I'm sorry.
Sounds a lot like Colin.
But I'm going to forgive you for that one, Mike. I just want to bring us back to the reality of the fact that the reserve fund, we need to put more reserve funds aside to achieve that AAA credit rating, which will benefit residents. It will cost us less money to borrow, take out loans to cover the capital investments that we have prioritized as a goal as a board. I also want to bring us back to the fact that if we reduce the annual charge, the individuals who benefit the most are the corporations and the most affluent people in Columbia. the people who are struggling are not going to see a marketed increase in their quality of life. I agree with Bill that we can help our people who are struggling by increasing our grants with the Community Foundation. I think that's a great way for us to address some of the challenges that our residents are facing.
Okay, I'm going to go to Reg first because he hasn't spoken yet. Reg, go ahead.
So my question is, what are we taking out loans for? So that we need that AAA rating? Why is it, it's obviously important, but what are we taking out loans to get that for?
I'm going to answer that.
Yeah, quickly.
Okay, I will answer this quickly. So a few things. If the board, this comes up every year with the board reducing the annual charge. I would suggest if the board wants us to look at reducing the annual charge, they provide us with a number or a percentage, because then we're just chasing our tails. The loan, underneath one, resilience, you have focusing on AAA credit rating. Well, if we're reducing the annual charge, that's not going to happen. We can give that up. Funding long-term capital expenditures, if you want to reduce the annual charge, you should take that out, because that's not going to happen either. So if you want one to be reduced annual charge, give us a number that you want us to look at, and we'll come back and provide you with what services need to be eliminated to make that happen. Now, if you want to look to the future and plan for the next 57 years and see what Columbia can be, well, I think this is a better path forward to look at these items individually and always look at reducing resident costs any way we can, but be realistic about it.
Wes?
Yeah, to that point, when you're talking about trades, number one is really just a trade across those things that we have listed. And so rather than trying to create a separate thing, which is a trade for one specific outcome in mind, creating a dispassionate trade of the things that we're actually putting up against each other, I think is the way to take it. That's what number one reads to me.
Ashley, you haven't spoken on this yet? You're good? Okay. And Colin still doesn't have his hand up. Okay, Eric, for your second time.
So Sean, you mentioned the next 50 years. So what are we buying in the next 50 years that we can take loans out? So the last several years, we contributed $10, $15 million in capital expense in the budget. We haven't needed to take out loans for any of that. In fact, we've been constantly paying down our debt to the point where we should be debt-free in 4 years. So the question I have is, again, to Reg's point, why is this AAA credit rating so important if we don't need to take out loans? And looking at the CIP is just calling for $10, $15 million of capital expenditures every year over the next 10 years. We've been doing that without taking out loans. So the question I have is, what are we buying for take out loans?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this has been answered multiple times in the time I've been on the board, and I know multiple times before this. CA is almost 60 years old now. We have an enormous amount of aging assets that need to be recapitalized over the next several decades, and that will probably involve taking out some loans. Is that a quick?
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Then why isn't that?
No, that was your second turn talking, Eric. Anyone else want to discuss Eric's motion?
What was his motion again?
His amendment was to.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, I'll just hop in and I'll just say I completely agree with Bill's comments about trade-offs and everything else that's been said, and Wes's and everything else that's been said here. So if no one else has any discussion, we're going to move to the vote. So again, we are voting on Eric's motion to add to 1D with emphasis on reducing the annual charge. A vote yes will add that. A vote no will keep that priority as it currently exists. Ashley?
No.
Colin?
No.
Bill?
No.
Delilah?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Wes?
No.
Karen?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
And I will vote no. Motion fails 6-4. We are now, give me a moment here, we're now back to the motion, the main motion, 6-4. I see that your hand is up, but I'm going to see if anyone else that hasn't jumped in yet wants to discuss anything. Ashley, did you know? Delilah, anything on the main motion for budget priorities?
I'm wondering if Bill would like to make a motion for increasing our grant awards to the Community Foundation.
I feel like that's not appropriate.
Okay, well, I'll let Bill address that when he wants to speak again. Reg, did you want to jump in the queue here?
No.
Okay.
Okay, hold on, I think, in fairness to Eric, he's been trying to jump in. Eric?
I want to make another motion.
Okay.
So I want to make a motion to strike 1A because it's not clear to me why we're taking out loans. So until that becomes clear, I'd like to strike 1A.
Point of information, it was just explained to you why we're taking out loans. If you don't understand that, that's an Eric problem, not a problem of it being explained to you.
I can still make the motion.
Eric's made a motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Call the question.
Okay, Ashley has called the question, no one has objected. So we are going to vote on whether to strike 1A, which will focus on attaining AAA credit rating. Ashley?
No.
Colin? Colin, you still there?
Sorry, Zoom. No. Yep,
Bill.
I'm here. No.
No.
Delilah?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Wes?
No.
Karen?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Sky?
No.
And I will vote no. Motion fails. Hold on, I gotta document that. Karen, 7-3 fails. Bill?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we include increasing the allocation of the grant program involving the Community Foundation of Howard County and to direct staff to do an analysis.
So, hold on, this is budget priorities, not like specific direction.
Oh, okay, well, if it's just a priority, then that's fine, just to increase the grant allocation.
Okay, so Bill has made a motion to, can I rephrase, say, Bill has made a motion to prioritize increasing grants?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, under, what do you want to say, 4C.
Okay.
Second.
Do you want to put it under 2?
Okay,
2D?
2D.
All right, any discussion? Reg?
Do we know how, any idea how much of a increase?
What I would say is, I tried to walk down it, and at this point, I guess we're doing strategic priorities. I would leave it up to the staff to take a look and let us know what they think would be an appropriate increase, and then we'll go from there.
Eric?
I'd like to know what Bill's planning on cutting to pay for this.
Hold on, anyone else want to jump in on Bill's motion?
I just did.
I know. Bill can choose to respond if he wants to.
Well, I think that, Eric, if you take a look at many of our other initiatives here, there are no dollar amounts associated with increasing our IT infrastructure or what amount of money we're going to put towards invasive species. Those numbers will come out in the wash. And I would imagine that with this initiative added on, that number will also come out in the wash. I don't expect it to be on the order of $1 million. It'll probably be far less than that. And truth be told, while you sit here and smile at me, there are a lot of kids who are going to be hungry. There are going to be a lot of people who need help. And that's all I'm trying to do here. So just understand that. It comes from my heart, and it's something that I would like to see us work on. Okay? So we don't have any specific numbers for anything here, but I think it needs to be part of our discussion, and that's all I'm asking for, is a chance to discuss this. That's why I would like to put it on the list. So thank you for your question.
Okay. Does anyone else want to jump in on Bill's amendments? Okay, I'm going to jump in and say that I appreciate the passion that's behind Bill's. The thing that always gets me about giving out the grants is that it imagines that, it kind of envisions that CA's money isn't otherwise doing good for good people. And I think it's good to focus CA's money on its core mission, and to not be giving out a ton of grants. And I know Bill and I have had this conversation personally multiple times, but that's my view on it. Anyone else want to have anything to discuss on this one? Okay, so we are going to vote on Bill's motion, which would add 2D, which will be to prioritize increasing funding for grants. Ashley?
Yes.
Colin?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you, Colin.
He said yes.
Yes.
Okay, Bill?
Yes.
Delilah?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Wes?
Abstain.
Karen?
No.
Reg?
No.
Sky?
Yes.
And I will vote no. Motion passes 5-4-1. Okay, back to the main motion of the budget priorities. I'm going to hop into the queue and ask a real quick clarifying question for 4A. Improve website and functionality. My main concern with that, is an emphasis on knowledge management. That it's really tough for, I think, board members and and residents to just find information that they're looking for. And so I just want to ask, does that include knowledge management? Okay, great.
Do you need to add time?
You all tell me.
Motion add 5 minutes?
Well, if we're just going to vote, we don't need to do anything. So is there any more discussion on the budget priorities?
Get back.
All right. All right, so now we are going to have the vote on the strategic priorities as amended. So this will adopt these priorities that are on the screen in addition to the motion to increase grant programs that Bill just identified. Any questions on what the vote is? So yes, we'll adopt this. No, we'll not adopt our priorities. Ashley?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Delilah?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Wes?
Yes.
Karen?
No.
Reg?
No.
Sky?
Yes.
And I vote yes, carries 7-3. I have, oh, look at that, perfect timing, everybody. We're gonna move on to new business now. Just trying to get a sense, do people want to take, not a 10-minute break, but a 5-minute break? Do we want to do that, or we want to press on? Okay, sounds like we want to take a break. Sorry to the people online.
Michael, do you just have to go to the bathroom?
I don't need to at all. So 5-minute recess, everybody.
Hey, Drew.
We do an elevator meeting.
Does this matter?
to new business. And item 8A, I think Dan is going to be providing us an overview. Thanks, Dan.
I know you all have been waiting since the last meeting. And I have been extremely excited. Actually, a long time ago, we used to, when you'd present, you'd stand. And when I stand and present, I walk a lot. And poor Mary Weeks used to come out and yell at me all the time to stand still because I'd always be walking off camera. I just want to say before I start, if you have bad eyesight, this is like the Bermuda Triangle of seats. It's like the worst possible angle of every TV screen. It's either far away or on a weird angle. So if I get lost, that's why. Okay, so it's an overview of what we do, but we're going to focus more on the affordability and accessibility piece. And it's really, follow on the strategic priorities, which that is one of the pieces. And one of the challenges that we have sometimes is that these things aren't directly called out in the budget. Our budget's not set up like that, and Sean and I have talked about that, Susan and I have talked about that, and our aspiration is to eventually get to the point where these things are called out, but this is a perfect time to remind all the things that we do to support our community, both with affordability and accessibility, as we head into the budget, that these things are baked into the budget. And if you were here last year, the presentation is virtually identical. And I did that on purpose, not because I'm lazy. I prefer to use the term efficient. But it's just that I don't have to change it because these things aren't, I'm not creating this every year. These are built into what we do. We refine and improve it every year.
Hey, excuse me, Drew, I think we're still muted because people, all right.
Oh, I have
Sorry.
to start over again?
No, you do not have to start over.
Let's see if I can figure out how to work this. I'm like at the town hall, but nobody told me that. Okay, we're going to go pretty quick. I promised Reg we'd be out of here by 10 o'clock, so. The slideshow is longer, and we'll skip over some things, because some of it you did see at the town hall, or we've talked about in previous meetings. Just an overview of everything that's involved with the team. We showed this graph at the town hall. This is how our usages break down. It's a little hard to read. Here's the actual numbers. The fitness clubs, almost 1.3 million visits a year. It's a little over half of our visits. The pools and swim center at 20% at 497. The outdoor pools are about 375,000 of that. The one that always amazes me is the ice rink at almost 200,000 visits. That's because we have one, if not the largest, depends on the day of the week sometimes, learn to skate program in the state, but also the Huskies youth hockey and our open skate is just, people are all over that. And by the way, we just got a brand new Zamboni in last week. You got to get by and see it. This is a rare occasion, New Zamboni Day. These things last decades. So these things only happen once every 20 or 30 years that you actually get a new one. So stop by and see it. But you can see how the usage breaks down across the facilities. And this is check-in visits and usage for mass use and all the other ways people come into the facilities. 2.5 million visits in FY25. I would love to talk about my 5 pillars again, but we'll knock it out of here in time. But this is the foundation of everything we do. Some of the things to remind how we partner with the community. Every year we're always reaching out in the community, and as we talk about some of our affordability programs, a lot of them are in partnership with other organizations in the community. So, any given year across the organization, we're partnering with well over 100 different organizations from the community. Well over 50 different affordability and accessibility programs and services that we offer to the residents in the community. Our outdoor pools are only one of 3 autism certified centers in the state. And this year, our kid space and tennis racket sports are looking to be added to that list. They're going to begin that journey to do that as well. Archives, you know, it's not just a local thing. She gets requests from all around the country. And we work very hard with making sure the website is ADA accessible. And that number's 97% because you just can't keep up. Things are always changing. Things are always moving. So it is constantly being evaluated every day. We have a tool that does it. But that is a very high priority for us. And, you know, it's come up in the strategic priorities. We will be working on looking at a new website for the next fiscal year. And again, that will also be not just information, but the ability to get to that information will be a key factor in that development. A reminder as we go through, because some of this will be about our memberships, the memberships that we have. The Fit and Play is all 3 fitness clubs and everything that's in the Play. And then the Play is recreation membership, the outdoor pools, the swim center, the ice rink, the skate park, the roller skating rink, tennis. And then the One Fit is a single club. And then you have the 3 golf memberships, the 5-day golf, 7-day golf, and golf Fit and Play, which is what it sounds like. It's golf and Fit and Play mashed together. So in context, you know, as we look at, we talk about membership pricing all the time, and this is a challenging discussion. Sean, in his presentation last, you know, indicated some of the headwinds we have and coming up. And so our expenses grow every year. And when we talk about inflation, and, you know, when we look at where inflation would be, and I have the FY97 rates because that's the only one Erin could find, kind of the oldest, you know, so for a good comparison. She dug through the archives for me. And then what that rate is today, and then if we had kept up with inflation, this is what it would be. So you can see that these are our resident rates. We are significantly below inflation. And I think I remember last time somebody's like, well, that's probably limited by market. But I will say that if you look at the family Fit and Play, that's $140, and with inflation it would be $168. The non-resident family Fit and Play is $211 right now. So we very easily could charge $170 for a family Fit and Play, and that would be well within the market rate. So, you know, our residents have been receiving the benefit of us staying below inflationary rises in cost. Unfortunately, our vendors don't afford us the same benefit, so we have the problems on the other side of the equation. Sean and I were talking about that this afternoon. But we do work hard to keep down the rates. Even though they go up, they're really not going up as much as they should be.
We'll wait until the end for questions. Thanks.
You know, in this slide, I showed that I have new rate and renewal rate. And what we do offer, and this is for all members, and this isn't included in any dollar amount I give you. This is just for information purposes. That if somebody has a new membership and they choose to do another annual membership, their rate reduces. And it reduces, in this case, this is the resident example of, so if you join this year as a new member, it was $140 for a family Fit and Play. But if you are a renewal, so you joined last year and you choose to join for another year, it would only be $122 instead of $140. So that is another benefit that we offer all of our members, but that even further lowers the resident impact because their rates are lower than what the non-resident rates are. Some of our accessibility programs, our income qualified program, our Columbia card, which includes some pool admission passes, we'll get to that, and our CA points program. Income qualified, residents only, receive a 50% discount on the membership rate. Qualifications, we use the highest HUD limits of income limits for Howard County. And it includes, like I said, a 50% reduction in rate. In FY25, we had 966 memberships. This was the end of FY25. And that equates to about $555,000 in membership fee accommodation. Accessibility programs around membership, the C8 Points program, 21 participating schools. It's for students in the free and reduced meal program. They can earn a free family membership. Currently this year, we have over 850 kids enrolled in the program trying to achieve that membership. For the 24-25 school year, 670 memberships were awarded. And that's, again, about $820,000 in fee accommodation. And I just pay attention to your email. The last several years, Jen and the team have been doing a picnic for the C8 Points program. That's the pictures you see there. I mean, if you want to see the impact of the program, you come to that picnic and see how those kids and families are so happy and grateful for the opportunity. And they're just having a great time and just appreciate the program overall. I met with Superintendent Barnes last week, and we were talking about the program, and they're obviously incredible. We couldn't do it without their support because they have to do a lot of administrative work to make it happen. And so they are a tremendous partner for us in this program.
I went to the picnic. It was a great activity.
Thank you. The Columbia Card, residents only. It provides preferred pricing on admissions and programming. 3 years ago, we added 4 pool pass admissions per membership to be used each summer, Monday through Thursday, Memorial Day through Labor Day. As of the Q4 of FY25, we had 4,642 memberships. What we do every May, the beginning of May, we go back through the memberships, and if the membership hasn't been used for 2 years, we basically suspend it because it's easy to renew. But this way, we know that every membership we're reporting is an active. They've used it within the last 24 months. So we're just not piling memberships up. So we get a pretty accurate count of how many memberships, how many of the Columbia cards are actually being used.
I raised my hand up. Do it all.
Yeah, okay, we'll come back to you, Karen.
I have a question about that.
The Columbia Card passes, again, residents only, the pool admissions. The pass program began in 2022. The first year, it was used 1,500 times. In FY25, it was used 1,900 times. That equates to over $13,000 in guest fees that were provided. But we also saw, we talk about what the give and take is. We've also seen the corresponding drop in the guest fees that we collect for that. So that is one we're actually seeing a hard exchange of the visits. We also have the second Sunday swim for residents, free admission on the second Sunday of June through August. We had 745 admissions in FY25. Again, about $6,300 in redemption value for those. Then when we talk about programmatic accessibility, we look at all these different programs. The income qualified goes to programming as well, not just membership. Originally this was only for membership, school aid service, and for CNSL. It now includes swim lessons as well as many of the community programs and services programs as well. So we've expanded across. School aid service, 46 students for the FY25 school year. Again, it's about $65,000 in support. Camps, we had 19 income qualified participants for 79 sessions, about $14,000 in support. CNSL, 85 income qualified participants and about $6,000 in support. So pretty good participation across the board. General programmatic accessibility, the ice rink, we work closely with the school system and Tom, now Andrea, Tom has retired, to allow free field trips for the students to come over and play on the ice. And we also offer discounts to the Scholastic Hockey Association to help those programs out. Sports Park works closely with Harper's Choice Middle School after-school program. They walk over and get to play mini golf. They do that 2 times a year, have fun at the sports park. And we work with many other nonprofits providing discounts for rentals. It's a pretty popular place to rent and bring kids in. In the fitness area, free martial arts, anti-bullying programs, both in the schools and in other venues. With the Teen Center, we do middle school takeovers. The after-school program in conjunction with the Teen Center. With the CCC Peace and Justice Youth Volleyball Program. This is a big program that happens at Supreme. Lots of particularly young girls get to come in and play volleyball and have a good time. The multicultural programs, Language Cafe, that's one of my favorites. That's been a long-standing program. But the bilingual play rhymes is a new one that's pretty exciting. Eliana Slotnick, who's our new actually it's not new anymore, multicultural program manager, has brought this to us and is actually executing it. She works with the Howard County Department of Health Family Options Program. It's a program for teen parenting for both pregnant and parenting teenagers. And they do 1 hour bilingual in Spanish and English play group for those young mothers. And the response has been great. They do that over the Teen Center and have a really good time. The Youth and Teen Center, tremendous amount of field trips this summer. And as I was reviewing the list and preparing for this, I'm going to pay a little closer attention next year because they went to Turkey Hill and got to learn how to make ice cream and eat ice cream. I'm not sure how I missed that one, but I'm going to be on that bus next year. Air and Space Museum, nature hikes. I mean, they do a lot of great things with kids during the summer, as well as all the programs we do throughout the year. And those are done in conjunction. Both ourselves and the Pearl Foundation supports a lot of those. So we, again, one of the organizations we partner with in the community to provide these opportunities. The archives, discounts for teachers, students, and nonprofits because we want the information to be accessible and available to any who want it and need it. The Art Center, Girls on Fire Young Girl Development Program, they do an art program. The ARC of Howard County. The entire team does a lot of work with the neurodiverse community, and that's the next one. McGill's Common in particular is a sensory pool. We've worked along with the Maryland Autism Society. I mentioned earlier, the outdoor pools are certified autism centers. Both the fitness clubs and ice rink partner with the public schools and ARC of Howard County and provide volunteer and employment opportunities for neurodiverse individuals. Both the aquatics and tennis racket programs partner with the Maryland Special Olympics for programming. And to wrap up, we talked about, the entire program. It's over 2.5 million visits. The program, CP&S, $34 million in revenue. That's 40% of CA. Over 50 different affordability and accessibility programs. And this year, FY25, it was at least $1.6 million in support for accessibility and affordability. And we do that not just alone, but to expand our reach, we partner with, like I said, well over 100, a numerous amount of organizations in the community to make sure we're reaching everyone, not just who we can reach. We go out to others and help us get to other parts of the community.
Okay, any questions? Eric?
Yeah, I do have one concern with the points program. It seems to me that we leave a lot of people behind with the points program. A lot of people don't qualify not because of income, but because of what schools they happen to be zoned for. Anyone attending, say, Clarksville Elementary, Clarksville Middle, River Hill High, Pointers Run, wouldn't qualify based on just because they're zoned for those schools because those schools don't participate. Meanwhile, there are people living in out parcels that don't pay the CA lien that aren't in CA that do qualify because they're attending a school that is part of the points program. So I would like to look at how we can make this more equitable for the entire CA community and allow more of the CA community to be able to benefit from this program versus just based on where you happen to be zoned.
Any other questions for? Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, when you said that we suspend memberships if they haven't been used for 2 years, we stop charging?
There's no charge for the Columbia card. We just make
Oh, it's
it
for the
inactive.
Columbia, oh, it's the,
Yes,
it's
the
only
Columbia
the,
card. We
okay.
make it
I thought you said
inactive so that
suspend.
we're not counting, because I could come and say we have 10,000 Columbia cards.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
that's
because
fine.
somebody got one 10 years ago and left town and it's still sitting there.
I'm
So this
relieved.
way, we have an accurate count of, so I'm not giving you
That's fair.
inflated numbers.
People always say it's hard to quit the gym, and I was like, no, Dan has a plan.
Always have a plan.
Wes, I see you coming off mute there.
Yeah, just to that point, renewing the card, if I have a card that's 25 months old and I show up to
You
want to
don't-
use it,
you know,
then
if you use
no
it-
problem.
If
Okay.
you use it, and if it does happen, if you haven't used it in the last 2 years,
On
you talk to
spot,
one
you
of the member service reps at the club or here, and it's like 2 seconds to get it going again.
Any
it's
other
easy.
questions for Dan? I'll just make a comment that, I think I've shared with Dan previously. Like, when I go to visit relatives and I end up using other facilities, like, even the nicest places, like I'll say, just pick on my uncle in New Hampshire. Like, he's got a place that he goes to I ask him what he pays for, it's way more than what a non-resident pays for a Fit and Play membership here. And he has access to one club that's like 45 minutes away. That's basically the combination of like one of our gyms plus the tennis club. And so I just think it's amazing how much value you all deliver. And then Eric, I recommend having maybe River Hill Community Association should talk to the PTAs of those schools to see if that's something that can get energized. All right, we're out of time on that topic.
Great presentation, thank you.
And now I think we have one from Jeremy. If you mind, if I kick right to Jeremy.
yes. Taking an overview of community operations.
You guys could sit there too if you want to have better sight.
Yeah, okay, excellent. Good evening, everybody. Jeremy Scharfenberg, Vice President of Community Operations. So I'm just going to do a quick run through of what this department does day in and day out for this community. And it's sort of did some adjustments to the original town hall presentation. So some of this material has been viewed before, although you guys couldn't see it because it was above your head and behind you. So now you actually get a good view of it. So just a quick run through of community operations and just highlighting some of the amenities and infrastructure highlights that are out there available for this community all the time. And a lot of these stats are known to everybody in terms of open space, 3,600 acres, community facilities, 10 community centers, 14 neighborhood centers, all of the sport and fitness facilities throughout the Columbia community that serve our residents, 94 miles of pathways, 19 miles of sidewalks. I just did a quick check this afternoon. That's the distance almost from here to Philadelphia. That's the length of pathways we have in our small town, just sort of a sense of the density of the pathways that we have. A little over 120 miles would almost get you to Philly. 265 bridges, 168 play areas, basketball courts, tennis/pickleball courts throughout the community, and our lakes and ponds, 3 primary lakes, and we actually have 47 ponds. It's a larger number than you would guess, but there are a lot of small little water bodies throughout open space, adjacent to pathways, adjacent to our facilities. Some of them are actually sort of stormwater facilities, but these are all features and amenities that are out there that are part of the value proposition, honestly, of this community. Especially open space, the pathways, the courts that are available for free, right? I think it's part of the intrinsic value of being a resident of this community is you have all these assets available to you for free all the time. You can go out and play basketball, you can jump on a pathway, go see a beautiful picturesque lake that's really well maintained. So these are part of the value proposition of this community and some of the value that's provided by the annual charge. Just running through some of the sort of the divisional breakdowns within community operations as departments. There's 4 primary divisions. That's open space, sustainability, construction, and facilities, and then our capital improvements team. And then within those 4 divisions, there's approximately 4 sort of categories of activities. They're not exclusive, but these are the highlight sort of primary buckets of activities within those divisions in the department. Open space, clearly landscape and turf management, that's a primary activity. Maintaining open space, our mowed spaces, about 500 acres of turf that we mow throughout the season. Sustainability, that's a really successful group and program that's really well received in the community, especially on the community engagement side, volunteer programming, construction facilities, that's maintaining all these assets. We have to take care of these facilities day in and day out. Dan mentioned 2.5 million visitors at the clubs, call it another million visitors at the community facilities. So that's 3.5 million folks, walking through our buildings day in and day out for a year that have wear and tear that we have to take care of. And then capital improvements. So this is actually maintaining all those amazing assets that are out there for our community to enjoy day in and day out. The play areas, the bridges, the sidewalks. It's okay.
I'm trying to join the Zoom for when I have to leave.
Oh, you're good. I'll go fast. I'll go fast. Oh, good. So just diving in a little bit in terms of the some highlights within the individual divisions. So open space, landscape and turf management, I mentioned taking care of the turf, but the monument beds, facility entrances, meadows, pathway stewardship. So that 94 miles of pathways is there and accessible and safe because our team is there day in and day out making it so. This is sort of a photo of our team, our landscaping crew out in front of the athletic club right now, making sure that facility looks aesthetically pleasing when folks approach it. It's beautiful. And then the weed harvesting right there, that's our weed harvesting boat out there. I forget, we had a naming contest at some point in time. I can't remember what the names were that came in from the kids, but I don't know if it was, but anyways, they got names. Vegetation management, recreation support, riparian zone management. And so again, this is sort of intrinsic, I mentioned stewardship during the town hall. It's just sort of embedded in everything that our team does, stewarding the lakes, stewarding our facilities, stewarding all of our resources, and then debris removal. Continuing on to open space, forest stewardship is a key component of what this team does. Again, out of that 3,600 acres, approximately 2,500 acres are forest. Numerous tree care and planting efforts, pruning, invasives management is also embedded. So this open space team regularly interfaces with our sustainability team for some of the larger invasive projects. We plant anywhere from 800 to 1,000 trees every year throughout open space. And then community events, this is another core function of the open space team, supporting all of these events throughout the community. Approximately 100 different, types of community events happen, whether it's a village fair or a 5K or Lakefront Live, 4th of July, for example, Bike About, Lake Fest. Our team is always in the background, making sure these things go off without a hitch as smoothly as possible, making sure every possible issue is addressed preemptively. There's a lot of forethought that goes into making these events happen and making them successful. Sustainability, so getting into that team, I mentioned our community engagement programs, Weed Warriors. We just had a Weed Warriors training at Robinson Nature Center this past Sunday, where 45 residents were trained and certified to be Weed Warriors, and that means that they are able to work in open space more effectively in helping to steward our forest and our open space. Adopt-a Spots, our CARES groups. So again, this is really serving as a force multiplier within the community because our open space is so large and the challenges are so great around invasives. Our team alone can't really make a dent. Having teams within the villages that can marshal 20 people to show up on a Saturday and help us pull English ivy off of the trees, which creeps up them and chokes them and brings them down. It's really fantastic. It engages all age groups. It's really great. We get families out on a regular basis that parents will bring their children out to learn about these things and get trained. Volunteer events, there are a lot of entities that are looking for service hours. A lot of corporate entities reach out to us, hey, do you have a cleanup we can help facilitate nearby? And our team will help make that happen. Energy management, that's sort of a key function of this team as well in terms of promoting electric vehicle infrastructure, charging stations throughout the community. We just completed a new one at Supreme several weeks ago. Renewable solar PV, that's mentioned as a strategic priority. This photo is actually the roof of Owen Brown Community Center. This is one of our most recent projects. The next solar PV system that's going to go online is actually at the sports park, which will cover about a third of that facility's energy use for the year, which is fantastic. Energy efficiency in general is a priority for this department and this team, making sure all of our mechanical systems, all of our boilers are as energy efficient as possible. And it's through the work of this team, with the support of this board over the years, that we've actually been able to reduce our energy use as an organization by a third. And we've cut our greenhouse gas emissions by 2/3 as an organization. And that's something that this board and this community can be really proud of. We're leaders in this space. And then energy management information system. This is something Danielle and her team have been working on aggressively in terms of, and we're reaching out to the villages to help with this. So we are actually working with Energy Cap right now. They're kind of a leading provider of energy management information systems. And this is where they actually go out and harvest utility data from BGE, package it, monitor it, look for any anomalies in the billing, look for billing errors. That's a big part of it. And then allow for all kinds of analytics around time of use and where some efficiencies can be gained. This is a new initiative that's underway right now by this team. Continuing on, sustainability, watershed management is a priority for this group as well. Lake monitoring, we do weekly sampling of all of our lakes, so we know we have trends on water quality throughout the community. When we had the sewer line rupture above Lake Elkhorn earlier this year, we could work with the Howard County Health Department, work with the Howard County Department of Utilities to actually look at some of the historical data for water quality in that lake in terms of fecal coliform and E. coli and other issues, and see where we got back to normal so that we could pull those signs warning the community to stay out of the water, because we actually had the baseline data of water quality for that lake. Bioretention facilities and swales. This is actually a photo of a bioretention facility at the Community Operations Center. It's beautiful. It's got wildflowers in it. Like, this is part of our upland treatment prioritization for watershed management. And we have 87 stormwater facilities that we manage throughout the community. About half of those are voluntary installations. The other half were required by code, by permit. And then natural resource management, this is the invasive plant species control. Again, tree planting is a key priority for this team. Canopy cover analysis, so we're really actively integrated with Howard County's Parks and Rec Department, looking for, using GIS and looking for gaps in canopy strategically, and then planning our tree planting projects to fill those gaps. So where did we have losses from the emerald ash borer, for example, from like 5 years ago that really impacted canopy cover? And so we're using GIS and satellite imagery to really, and coordinating with the county to look for pockets that we can focus on to target to really get the canopy cover back up and address some of those open patches. Bee City program, who doesn't love a bumblebee photo, right? That's beautiful. We actively work to promote milkweed throughout the community. We have it, there's a big patch of it in front of the Community Operations Center, which is beautiful. It's buzzing with pollinators all spring. It's amazing. Moving on to construction facilities, so major renovations. So this team is really the stewards of our buildings. And so the buckets for those activities are major renovations. So the fitness club renovations, so phase 4, lower level locker rooms at Supreme. Band shell construction, which is underway. We had the groundbreaking for that on October 7th. The Art Center Stonehouse renovation. So this is sort of showing the new vestibule there as well as the elevator for that facility. Again, improving that facility is about a $4 million renovation. Accessibility, life safety systems were enhanced throughout that building. Reg knows all about that. Sprinkler systems, new fire alarms, a significant improvement in that facility. Light construction, so this is sort of all the smaller projects. This is smaller renovations in the neighborhood centers. We just completed one in Stevens Forest. Elevator and lift projects, roof replacements, sort of basic, sort of classical facilities management activities. This is the recently refinished floor at Supreme at the arena. And continuing on with construction facilities, so in terms of regular facilities maintenance, so we have an in-house light construction crew. That's a couple members of our crew working on siding for, I think it's a bathhouse at one of the pools, roof maintenance, millwork, so that's sort of door framing, door hardware. Facilities management, regular inspections of all of our building systems. So these systems are all very complex, finely tuned systems that operate as efficiently as possible to serve our members and also reduce costs. This is a member of our team looking at a dehumid unit that's actually on the roof of the pool at Supreme, and an overall project management for those systems. And then winding it out with the fourth division, this capital improvements, which is sort of parks, pathways, and playgrounds in the budget. So that's construction, maintenance, and inspection. So all these systems, all these amenities are exceptionally well cared for. There are safety inspections that take place for all these amenities. There are structural inspections that take place for all these amenities each year. So each year, all of these systems are inspected twice at a minimum. In terms of maintaining these assets, historically, we put in about 12 new bridges every year. We've switched over to fiberglass, which are much more longer lasting and safer. They're not as slick as the wooden ones, which was becoming a significant problem. And especially since the industry changed the specifications around wood preservation. Pressure treated wood doesn't last anywhere near as long as it used to, and it's actually failing out faster than we expected. With our recently installed wooden bridges are starting to have issues because the preservation chemicals are not as not as effective. We replaced about 3 miles of pathway per year. I mentioned we had 94 miles of pathway. We're actively replacing that each year. Play areas, construction maintenance inspections. The new cluster play area program that we've been implementing over the last couple of years has been really successful. Jason and team are out there meeting with the village boards on a regular basis as they complete their cluster analyses and come up with their plans, making adjustments based on what some of those priorities are for each individual village. And we replaced about 7 of those per year. And there's some they're really amazing play areas now. Kingston Trivence over off of Cape Ann has yes, that's right, Wes, I'm talking to you. There's a nice little system where there's some sway benches under a tree, and it's perfect. And then it's a deer chase. I forget the name of it, but it's a fantastic new play area with I forget what the name of the thing is, but anyways. It continues to be really well received. And then embedded within capital improvements is land management and the GIS team as well. There's hundreds of play areas, all kinds of amenities, and you're out in open space. How do you find them? What's near you? Well, you pull up your Discover CA app on your phone, and it'll tell you exactly what's in your view shed on your phone. Real property stewardship, regular coordination with Howard County. So this team, we have bi-weekly calls with the county for different initiatives, whether it's a sewer replacement project or some right of entry to get access to something that the county needs, because our infrastructure is all very ingrained and sort of intermeshed to serve the community. And then fleet management, maintenance of our vehicle and equipment fleet, and then equipment acquisition and disposal. All of this work in our community takes equipment to go out and do that work. And so that's a key component of what the capital improvements division handles for this organization. And that's it. That's a quick summary of community operations, the 4 divisions: open space, sustainability, construction facility services, and capital improvements. And I'm open to any questions you have.
Bill?
Just a quick acknowledgement. Let you know, Wild Lake Cares just celebrated its 10th anniversary last weekend. So a leader in that movement there. We're really proud of it, and I'm glad that you guys continue to have that great relationship. So just want to toot our horn there for a moment. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Eric?
Yeah, so you guys recently came out to River Hill to propose a couple of designs, and we're really happy with the discussions and where those are going. But my question is that in River Hill, we've got a lot of play areas that are, because we're 25, 30 years old, that we got a lot of players that are 25, 30 years old with the old wooden structures that are probably coming soon to be retired pretty close and probably in the same time. So the question I have is, so we're planning on doing 7 a year. If we increase the budget, would we be able to do more than 7 if we were able to increase the budget for this?
Yeah, obviously, if there were more capital resources available, it would afford more.
And what level, in your opinion, would the max?
Well, I mean, at the moment, we're fairly close to industry standards of about every 25, 30 years. So we're at a pretty healthy pace right now. And typically, the way the replacement cycle
important that we have someone looking out, how do we operate? What do we do? You know, it's one thing to have an organizational structure that looks like, okay, this is essentially what we do. What are we doing in a way that, you know, are we overlapping in things between our departments? Are there gaps we're missing in our departments? Are there things we can do better? Is someone looking out to holistically to say, you know, we need to kind of standardize or streamline, or, you know, you're doing this and we need to make sure that we're a cohesive unit. Now, we have many buildings and we're segregated, so it makes it tough on the organization. So we need someone that has this holistic view and that can work with staff. Armsby's been great at supporting staff in that role. This is just an enhancement of that, and really kind of it's going to help us to be much more efficient and provide better service to the community. So congratulations, Armsby. Next, this is more of a formality. Dan Burns, everyone knows him, in case you don't. Dan's been VP of Community Programs and Services. This is a typo on my part. Dan is now Senior VP of Community Programs and Services. While it's a formality, Dan provides great support to the Office of the President. He really has been here a long time. He's knowledgeable. He's been through a lot of history. He understands the organization as a whole. He understands working with the board, working with the community, and part of Community Programs and Services is, you know, his staff. They are a lot of times the face of CA. They're the first people you see when you walk into the clubs. Dan does an amazing job developing the staff, working with them almost on a daily basis. He puts great teams together. He's constantly supporting the staff and supporting my office. So this is a formality, but is well-deserved. So Dan, congratulations. Next change, you know, Danica Rhines has left. She was the Senior Manager of Communications and Media Relations. This is a position that, while Danica was here, we were working on elevating this position. My view of the position in the organization is we need someone that standardizes our messaging across the organization and unifies it and creates a communication strategy for us and all of the staff to follow. There's so many means of communication now, it gets very difficult for us to get our message out to CA, as Columbia Association. I think historically, the position's done a great job about communicating about events, promoting things on social media, doing more feel-good pieces. You know, I think we're starting to see, you know, Columbia Association is such a large organization, we need to be making our own news. We need to be pushing this out to the public, to the community, about what's going on and what's interesting. I mean, you hear what we have going on, a lot of people don't know that. And because we're so diverse and we provide so many programs and services, we really need to focus on that. And the public needs to know, A, what the value is for their annual charge, what they're getting and why it's important. And then what's available to the community that we're doing, that whether it relates to sustainability or open space, that is meaningful to the community, that, you know, it goes beyond just the great programming we do and kind of the feel-good stories. So the new position is going to have much more responsibility. It's going to be a senior leadership position, and it'll be the Director of Media Relations and Communications. So we hope to have that position on board soon. This is a new position, kind of reallocating an existing position, and we're creating this event logistics coordinator. So last year when I came in, you saw this, Danica, Robin Stimson, and Chris Clem came in to present that we had the new summer programming series, and we diversified that. It was highly successful. We diversified the programming. We kept a lot of the existing programming. We had a great meeting today with, there's probably a group of 25 people that are involved to make all the programming happen at that lakefront. So it is an enormous amount of time and energy that needs to go into making that programming successful. What we did learn as part of that is we needed someone on the CA side to help coordinate our efforts. Not to do all the work, but really just to kind of work with the internal staff and work with the external vendors, the talent in the community to make sure that these events go on seamlessly. So not only at the lakefront, which you see what goes on, but you've heard me talk about, well, we want to expand our programming. You know, we have 2 other great lake areas, but we also have 10 villages, which we'd love to do programming in. So this position is going to help to coordinate that effort, coordinate the licensing and insurance requirements that go along with that, and just make sure that things run a lot more seamlessly. So this position's advertised. We're going to start looking at applicants soon. But this is an important position for us to provide this programming to the community. Next and last is the executive leadership team. So as you all know, we have the senior leadership team. I meet with that group monthly. It's a great, robust group. Previously, there was an executive leadership team in place, and that was the CFO, Sean McCullum, Dan Burns, and Jeremy Scharfenberg, and it's a great group. But as we look at the organization and want to provide better service, but just have a better, stronger knowledge base to help us with succession planning, staff development, and being prepared for any type of change in the organization because we are so large. We need to expand the executive leadership team. And this is a team that I rely on to help chart the course for CA, working at the direction of the board, but really understanding, this is a group, the new group is the same as the old group, Dan, Sean, and Jeremy, but also Armsy's part of this executive leadership team now, and also Jackie Tuma, who's our Director of Audit Services. Jackie understands the organization. She audits a lot of the departments. She understands how the organization works really well. Same with Armsby. So this is a group that really has a grasp of Columbia Association as an organization and how we work. So great team. We meet bi-weekly, but this is just a change that helps to kind of, solidify the organization and prepare us for the future. So these are just some, there we go. These are some changes that we've made that I think are going to enhance the organization and leverage us for the future.
Okay, Karen?
Yeah, Sean, I'm really pleased to see this. I really wanted to see you put your stamp on the organization, so I'm really pleased to see this. My only question would be is, Jackie is reported as part of the senior leadership team. How do we maintain the independence of the auditor if she's part of that team? How do you?
It's an advisory team just to discuss, the organization as a whole. So Jackie would be part of that as the auditor. Now, her auditing function is separate and distinct from this group. I meet with Jackie individually to talk about the organization and also her role in her auditing projects. But no, this has no effect on that. And actually, it enhances the group. So Jackie's view on the organization is, okay, well, how can these things go wrong? And how can we prevent things from going wrong? So she's to start at that point rather than start, at the end point where things are wrong, is more beneficial for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, when this is fully implemented and you got everyone in place, the question I have is, long-term, will this increase our costs, decrease our costs, or will the cost remain the same? And if it does increase or decrease our costs, how much will our costs go up or down as a result?
Well, I think we're going to be a lot more efficient. Will our costs increase? It's hard to tell. We'll be more efficient. There'll be better value, and there'll be a better service to the community. Do I think it's going to be a large dollar amount cost? No. Probably the net result will be a great savings.
Bill?
Just trying to keep track of everything. Trying to keep track of everything. The communications director, the logistics coordinator, and the audit services group. What division are they in now? Are they in administrative services? Are they
on the Office of the President?
Okay. Yes. All right, cool. And so what you're saying is, with this new leadership team, we need a bigger table, right? So.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, yes.
Any other questions for Sean? I noticed a couple things on there when we were doing the new descriptions for Armsby that IT project management fell off. I assume is he still doing that?
That's part of the business continuity. So
okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then I know something I hear often from the community, and I think it may have been in Oakland Mills' input, is wanting to ensure that new residents, or all residents, but particularly new residents, are aware of all the services and benefits they have from Columbia Association. And so it sounds like that is part of the whole idea of kind of sprucing up the communications team, right?
Yes, 100%.
Is marketing still going to be separate from communications? Okay. And then, yeah, I think these are great changes, and I agree with Karen. It's great to see you like making your stamp on the organization, and particularly, you know, I think having like Armsby as someone that used to see all of the entire organization and Jackie, that does sound like it will have some benefit to the way that you know, to the senior leadership team. Okay. Anything else? All right. So now we're almost done. So we're on to questions only. So were there any questions related to the president's reports, the legislation that's in the packet, the IAT report, or the ethics policy attestation?
Is that a quick question for Sean regarding the dredging at Lake Kinnamaqundi? Clearly, we're underway there. Is everything moving along as expected? What do we have for milestones on that?
Jeremy can speak to that.
Yeah, the dredging is on track. We've had great weather. I think the latest report is I think we're pulling 600 or 700 cubic yards of sediment out of there every day, which is in fact ahead of schedule.
Great, yeah. Great to hear. Thanks.
Knock on wood. I just jinxed it, so no.
Anything else? Do we have things for them?
Yeah, I have the ethics attestation forms here for everyone, for each individual member. So if you want to sign them, there.
All right.
Scott, you want to sign?
She's like me, wants to go home.
It can be a homework assignment, guys. It's not a big deal. I don't. Or do they need witness?
It needs a witness.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can come in at your leisure. Well, John's not here, but once the board votes on the policy, it's in effect. The signing of it is a formality because the board signs the policy every year.
All right. So you can sign this on your way out. Sign it. Come up another time. Show up early at the next meeting. Any other questions? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Point of order. We've got proposed new topics.
Thank you, Eric.
I do have
I uphold your point of order.
about time. Yeah, I'd like to add a proposed new topic for the board to look at the impacts of glyphosate.
I'm sorry, the way?
Our board policy using pesticides, including glyphosate.
Okay, we can get that onto the topic log. Any other new topics? All right, Reg has motioned to adjourn.
Second.
Anyone object? All right, thanks, everybody.
All right. Hey, Dan.
Okay, Sean, sign here. What do you do your hand?
No, nothing. It's
Tennis?
Reg? No, not even.
Were you with Sky? She's wearing a similar.
I know. Yeah. We're all. Oh, geez.